Chapter 1329, System Task Consecutive Breakthroughs Part 2. This time, the system unexpectedly delivered 2 consecutive notifications to Jiang Chengxuan, signaling new tasks and opportunities. To Jiang Chengxuan, the current task seemed like a foregone conclusion, something that was practically guaranteed. Not only had he already reached the threshold of the early stage of the Earth immortal realm, but with the presence of the origin Chi Lotus, it would be nearly impossible for him not to break through to the mid-stage Earth immortal realm. For a moment, even Jiang Chengxuan felt a mix of surprise and numb joy. It truly feels like receiving something without any effort. After a while, he murmured to himself, shaking his head with a smile. The system's timing, right as the immortal domain's great tribulation loomed, couldn't have been more perfect. However, there's no need to rush to absorb the origin Chi Lotus. Soon regaining his composure, Jiang Chengxuan resisted the urge to let these unexpected rewards cloud his judgment. He calmly planned how to utilize his resources. The origin Chi Lotus was a rare and powerful treasure. Its primordial energy was incredibly dense, unlike anything he had encountered before. Using it to break through to the early stage of the Earth immortal realm would be akin to using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. After some quick deliberation, Jiang Chengxuan decided to first rely on his own strength to break through to the early stage of the Earth immortal realm. Once he had reached the mid-stage and stabilized his cultivation, he would then absorb and refine the origin Chi Lotus. This approach would not only allow him to fully utilize the Lotus's power, but also significantly reduce the time needed to stabilize his new cultivation level. With the looming immortal domain tribulation, saving time and being well prepared was more crucial than ever. Time was the most precious commodity now. The great tribulation was imminent, and any additional preparations he could make were necessary. Even for someone at the Earth immortal level, the tribulation's power wasn't something to be underestimated. Xuan Han's lingering injuries were a testament to that. Despite the protection of an Earth immortal's blessed land, one could still suffer injuries from the tribulation's force, leaving them unable to progress for tens of thousands of years. Xuan Han had endured his wounds for millennia before finally finding a solution. Jiang Chengxuan had no intention of subjecting himself to such suffering. For him, nothing was more terrifying than the prospect of his cultivation being halted. Who? Exhaling a deep breath, Jiang Chengxuan focused his mind, no longer hesitating. Sitting atop his Earth immortal blessed land, he gently summoned the origin Chi Lotus, placing it above his head. In this way, he wouldn't immediately absorb its energy, but could still benefit from its presence during his breakthrough. Buzz. Soon, Jiang Chengxuan became as still as a statue, completely motionless. Waves of immortal energy surged to their peak within him, shaking the heavens. The laws of the 5 elements, reincarnation and life and death manifested around him, painting vivid and awe-inspiring scenes. There were visions of the 5 elements of the immortal domain, creating and destroying life, the cycle of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth in a constant dance. There was the grand path of reincarnation, invisible yet all-encompassing, where all life and souls journeyed. There was the realm of life and death, where the balance of existence and non-existence dictated the fates of all beings. Each of these laws produced immense, supreme power, enveloping the space completely, beyond even the immortal domain's will to perceive. Within this environment, Jiang Chengxuan felt his entire being expand, every fiber of his immortal body growing intensely warm. He constantly recalled his insights, bringing forth the 3 laws, allowing them to merge and transition between each other, completing and perfecting one another. As new forces of the Grand Tao emerged, they slowly became more refined and flawless. Meanwhile, the aura of the origin Chi Lotus stimulated the Earth immortal blessed land beneath him, driving it to its peak. Immortal energy surged through it, the very foundation of immortal domain's power, which Jiang Chengxuan absorbed and refined madly, transforming it into his own immortal energy. This process, typically long and lonely, was accelerated at an unbelievable pace due to Jiang Chengxuan's immense potential and the support of the origin Chi Lotus. His aura rapidly climbed to its peak, his entire being swelling in size. Then, in a fleeting moment, the 3 laws he had been refining completed their transformation, merging into a new, unified force that integrated with the immortal domain itself. His breakthrough became inevitable, a profound realization shattering the fragile equilibrium. A massive vortex of immortal energy formed around Jiang Chengxuan, pulling in energy from his blessed land and the surrounding space, filling him with boundless power. It surged through his body like a raging river, pushing him beyond his previous limits. He heard a mystical chant as his immortal body broke through its former constraints, expanding to accommodate the influx of energy. This process continued for an unknown amount of time, until everything gradually slowed down. Sitting in his meditation, Jiang Chengxuan's immortal body had grown significantly, towering like a giant spirit. His skin emitted a radiant glow, saturated with immortal energy, which seeped out from his pores, forming layers of colorful clouds around him. A powerful primordial aura surrounded him like an impenetrable shield. Without a doubt, Jiang Chengxuan had successfully broken through to the mid-stage Earth immortal realm. As he opened his eyes, now glowing with purple lightning, Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement. The difference between the early and mid-stages of the Earth immortal realm might seem small, but the actual gap was immense. At this moment, Jiang Chengxuan felt confident that even if he faced 3 Earth immortal elders simultaneously, he could remain undefeated. In the Earth immortal realm, every step was like crossing a vast chasm. Buzz! With a wave of his hand, Jiang Chengxuan's massive form receded, returning to normal size. The origin Chi Lotus continued to revolve above his head, its energy untouched. He had executed his plan flawlessly, achieving his breakthrough without drawing on the Lotus's power. I wonder what heights I can reach after absorbing this treasure. With a determined look, Jiang Chengxuan gently grasped the origin Chi Lotus, its immense primordial energy almost irresistible. Let's begin. Wasting no time, Jiang Chengxuan unleashed the power of his Earth immortal blessed land. As his immortal energy surged forth, the land within his blessed land expanded, covering the space like a celestial canopy, absorbing everything within its domain. The immortal land's primordial energy swept over the origin Chi Lotus, drawing it into the land's embrace. In an instant, the lotus emitted a brilliant radiance, its 9-colored light spreading across the entire blessed land. The land, infused with primordial energy, blossomed with life. Mountains surged from the ground, reaching the heavens, while immortal plants and grasses thrived, spreading across the landscape in a dazzling display of color. The entire blessed land seemed to rejoice, celebrating the infusion of primordial energy, brimming with an overwhelming vitality. Jiang Chengxuan felt an immense sense of comfort as his newly attained cultivation level stabilized instantly. His immortal body and Tao laws were nourished by the primordial energy, achieving a state of perfection. Without hesitation, Jiang Chengxuan resumed his meditative posture, inhaling and exhaling deeply as he activated his cultivation techniques and Tao laws. As his chest rose and fell, immortal energy flowed from his pores, while the boundless primordial energy of the origin Chi Lotus was absorbed and refined by Jiang Chengxuan, bit by bit, transforming into the nourishment for his blessed land. Chapter 1330, Consecutive Emergence Part 1. The primordial Chi Lotus, though an immensely powerful source of primordial energy, exuded an aura that was not fierce or violent. Instead, it was incredibly harmonious and vast as the sea. Absorbing and refining this power was as smooth and effortless as the flow of water. Jiang Chengxuan pondered whether this too was a calculated move by the system. This primordial artifact at this moment was undoubtedly an extraordinary boon for him. Within the seclusion chamber of the Loose Cultivator Alliance, Jiang Chengxuan sat cross-legged in the air. Beneath him, his Earth immortal blessed land manifested, while above his head the primordial Chi Lotus floated. Continuously, he absorbed and refined the primordial energy, channeling it into his blessed land, meticulously honing his cultivation level, principles, and immortal power. This time, Jiang Chengxuan truly entered a state of seclusion, focusing entirely on cultivation, oblivious to the passage of time in the world outside. Within this seclusion, another millennium quietly slipped by, drawing the impending great calamity of the immortal domain closer still. During this millennium, the Loose Cultivator Alliance was fortunate to remain unscathed, untouched by the calamities of the Tribulation Chi. Under the leadership of Shen Ruyan and others, the alliance steadily grew, continually amassing strength. Perhaps it was due to their location in the remote western continent, which seemed to have turned misfortune into fortune. Meanwhile, the other forces in the immortal domain were not faring as well, especially those sects situated in resource-rich lands, which suffered repeated disasters. The spread of Tribulation Chi appeared to be correlated with the abundance of resources. The richer the land in immortal materials and treasures, the more likely Tribulation Chi would erupt. Fortunately, over the past millennium, the various factions had taken precautions against the tribulation chi. Many sects banded together, with Earth immortal venerables frequently moving between regions, swiftly suppressing the tribulation chi as it emerged. In this way, despite the disasters, they managed to salvage a significant amount of losses. During this period, figures like Fuguang Immortal had sent secret messages to Jiang Chengxuan, but Shen Ruyan truthfully informed them that he was still in seclusion. Thus, no one came to disturb him. Throughout these 1,000 years, Xuanhen Immortal remained in deep seclusion as well, continuing to refine his blessed land and heal the ancient wounds caused by tribulation chi with the power of the true tribulation elimination pill. In the central continent of the immortal domain, within the headquarters of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce. Amidst the vast expanse of the Tianlong Immortal Mountains, a series of magnificent golden palaces stood tall. A flurry of activity bustled within, creating an atmosphere of palpable tension. It seems that the green bamboo peak is on the verge of another tribulation chi eruption. In the main hall of the chamber, upon receiving the latest intelligence, Fuguang Immortal furrowed his brows, sighing with a sense of helplessness. With the descent of this great calamity upon the immortal domain, those most severely impacted, aside from the sects directly destroyed by the tribulation chi, were the complex networks managing the flow of resources throughout the domain, like the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce. Since the day the great calamity began, the cultivation resources across the immortal domain had mysteriously diminished, leading to supply shortages, and some sects with long-standing trade relationships simply vanished. The resulting losses were astronomical, a figure beyond comprehension. Many of the destroyed sects had been trading partners, representing direct losses. Moreover, prearranged deals fell through due to the eruption of tribulation chi, leaving the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce vulnerable to opportunistic exploitation and demands for compensation. Over these past millennia, despite their substantial reserves, the chamber had been overwhelmed, only recently managing to stabilize the situation. But this respite was brief. No sooner had they caught their breath than another wave of tribulation chi spread across the immortal domain, bringing a fresh surge of bad news from the sects in various regions. It was truly a case of one disaster following another. I wonder when Brother Chengxuan will exit seclusion. In his heart, Fuguang Immortal longed for Jiang Chengxuan. He believed that with Jiang Chengxuan's strength, not inferior to theirs, his intervention could undoubtedly alleviate some of the pressing crises. However, no news had come from the loose cultivator alliance regarding Jiang Chengxuan's exit from seclusion. After a moment of wistful reflection, Fuguang Immortal shook his head, activated his immortal power, and transformed into a streak of light, leaving the Tianlong Mountains. Currently, the chamber's other two Earth Immortal Venerables were fully occupied suppressing the tribulation chi, leaving Fuguang Immortal with no time to rest. The devastation wrought by the tribulation chi could occur in the blink of an eye. Yet unbeknownst to Fuguang Immortal, not long after his departure, faint black cracks began to slowly spread in a certain part of the Tianlong Mountains, stealthily creeping like the roots of a plant. And within the chamber, its defenses weakened by the absence of its key protectors, no one noticed a thing. But a few days later, the long-awaited moment finally arrived within the loose cultivator alliance. On this day within the alliance's domain, an invisible thunderous roar echoed, and a domineering earth immortal aura spread across the skies, enveloping the land. High above, deep and mysterious star clouds slowly churned, with dazzling radiance bursting forth amidst the roars, resembling the birth of the universe. This spectacle immediately drew the attention of everyone in the loose cultivator alliance. Countless disciples looked up, and the various elders, wielding their immortal power, ascended into the sky, assembling in the void. It's Elder Xuanhen. He's finally exiting seclusion. Chapter 1331, Consecutive Departures from Seclusion, Part 2. Wonderful, simply wonderful. They gazed into the distance and saw a figure, radiant as a star, emitting waves of energy in the center of the celestial cloud. The terrifying aura made them feel utterly insignificant, leaving no doubt that Elder Yuanhen had finally completely refined the true tribulation elixir. I, Yuanhen, have endured countless years of humiliation, and now I can finally reclaim everything I lost. Heaven has eyes. As expected, amid the disciples' joyful anticipation, Yuanhen's ecstatic voice echoed across the skies, shaking the heavens. The despair of being unable to advance his cultivation for tens of thousands of years had been finally lifted today. Even as a respected Earth immortal, Yuanhin could not suppress his overwhelming joy. The path of immortality is truly filled with endless hardships. Observing this, Shen Ruyan and the others, like the fierce-scudding fairy, glided through the air, unable to help but sigh. The closer one comes to the peak of immortality, the more they realize the dangers of the immortal realm and the difficulties of the immortal path. It is a path without end, where even an earth immortal can be shattered into pieces with the slightest misstep. Only those at the highest heights can truly understand the hardships and struggles involved. The ordinary immortal elders could only marvel at Yuanhin's dominance, unaware of the suffering and pain that accompanied it. Buzz. In the sky, the magnificent celestial cloud gradually shifted from being ethereal to becoming solid. The hazy radiance that had covered thousands of miles slowly converged, forming a brilliantly shining star lake, like a gemstone formed from countless stars, embedded in the sky. In the next moment, that gemstone burst apart, transforming into countless beams of light that fell like a rain of auroras. In the midst of this stunning display, Yuanhin's figure emerged, stepping forward. His expression and demeanor were completely renewed, bathed in auroral light. His face was handsome, his long hair flowing without wind like the tail of a comet. His immortal robes glimmered, exuding a powerful and confident aura. This was clearly a true heavenly prodigy, standing apart from the world. This scene filled the hearts of countless disciples of the scattered immortal alliance with pride and excitement. This was their elder, so strong. How could the sect not prosper for millennia? And let's not forget that there was also Jiang Chengxuan, a figure even more revered, a foundation upon which the scattered immortal alliance now stood strong. Welcome back, Elder Yuanhin. Welcome back, Elder Yuanhin. Welcome back, Elder Yuanhin. Immediately, countless disciples and elders of the scattered immortal alliance bowed in unison, their voices resounding like thunder. As the great tribulation of the immortal realm loomed ever closer, Yuanhin's emergence from seclusion was undoubtedly a great reassurance to everyone. Everyone, it's good to see you all again. I, Yuanhin, have returned. With a joyful expression, Yuanhin addressed the crowd. The current Yuanhin was noticeably different from his formerly silent self, or rather, this was the true Yuanhin. Only the old injuries, sealed for tens of thousands of years, had prevented him from showing his true self until now. Under the heavens, among all the talented, there was no one who would willingly fade into obscurity. Congratulations. Among the crowd, Shen Ruyan also offered her congratulations to Elder Yuanhin. Hearing this, Yuanhin's expression softened, and he respectfully replied, I owe everything to Elder Chengxuan. I am deeply grateful beyond words. It was evident that Yuanhin held Jiang Chengxuan in complete reverence. He was also very courteous to Shen Ruyan. Following this, the news of Yuanhin's triumphant return spread quickly, stirring the entire scattered immortal alliance. Many high-ranking elders came to greet him warmly, their words full of care and concern. In response, Yuanhin did not put on any airs, engaging in pleasant conversation with everyone. He had fully accepted his role as an elder of the scattered immortal alliance, or rather, as a close confidant of Jiang Chengxuan. However, before Yuanhin or anyone else could fully bask in their joy, a sudden and overwhelming aura erupted, sweeping across the scattered immortal alliance. Beginning with a mysterious hum, boundless celestial light exploded outward, transforming into a series of ethereal dragons that danced through the sky, enveloping the entire sect. The commotion was even more terrifying than Yuanhin's recent reemergence. In an instant, the entire scattered immortal alliance was engulfed in a hazy light, as illusory lotuses continually bloomed and withered in the void. The whole sect was submerged in a sea of divine lotuses. For a moment, everyone was utterly shocked and speechless. What kind of power could so effortlessly encompass every immortal in this place, making it seem completely natural, as if there were no resistance at all? This clearly demonstrated that the source of this power could easily subdue them all, a terrifying thought indeed. Could it be? Among them, only Shen Ruyan reacted the fastest. Her beautiful eyes first widened in surprise and then brightened with delight. This immense power was accompanied by a familiar presence. Without a doubt, it belonged to her husband, Jiang Chengxuan. Is Elder Chengxuan about to emerge from seclusion as well? Elder Chengxuan, ha, what a coincidence. The other elders finally caught on and exclaimed with excitement. Hearing this, everyone in the scattered immortal alliance held their breath, anticipation building in their chests. In this surreal moment, the entire world seemed to fall silent, with only the sound of blooming lotuses filling the air. The power was incredibly strong, yet gentle, so much so that many disciples began to feel their cultivation slowly advancing. After a long while, everyone remained quietly waiting, like statues, not daring to move. It wasn't until a voice suddenly broke the dreamlike silence that they snapped back to reality, focusing all their attention on its source. What's the occasion today? Why is everyone gathered so neatly? With this voice, a tall figure slowly emerged, exuding a calm and commanding presence. His appearance was simple, without any flashy adornments, just a gentle breeze around him. But as he moved, it was as if the most beautiful scenery of the world naturally accompanied him, blending seamlessly with the environment. This was truly a union of man and heaven. Husband. Naturally, Shen Ruyan was the first to respond, her stunning face blooming with a radiant smile. Then, all the elders of the scattered immortal alliance followed suit, raising their voices in unison. Welcome back, Elder Chengxuan. Heaven bless our sect. Welcome back, Elder Chengxuan. Heaven bless our sect. Welcome back, Elder Chengxuan. Heaven bless our sect. The eyes of everyone present were filled with admiration and reverence. Jiang Chengxuan was a legendary figure for the scattered immortal alliance, and today he had risen even higher, taking another step forward. There was nothing more reassuring to the alliance than this news. It's been a while, Elder Yuanhen. Congratulations on your recovery. My efforts were not in vain. With a light smile, Jiang Chengxuan acknowledged the crowd before turning to congratulate Yuanhen. Hearing this, Yuanhen's face showed immense gratitude as he bowed and said, Elder Chengxuan, I will never forget your kindness. If you ever need anything, I will repay it with my life. In his words, the power of an earth immortal was unmistakable, suppressing the heavens, and his immortal grace stirred the hearts of all the disciples and elders. Many of the higher-ranked elders were unable to comprehend Jiang Chengxuan's current strength, but rather than fear, they felt a profound sense of joy. With Jiang Chengxuan and Yuanhen standing guard, they could finally stop worrying about the impending great calamity of the immortal realm. On this day, with both of them emerging from seclusion, they were poised to subdue all obstacles. Chapter 1332, Immortal Name Shakes the World, Suppressing Tribulation Chi. Chapter 1332, Immortal Name Shakes the World, Suppressing Tribulation Chi. After exiting seclusion this time, Jiang Chengxuan gave detailed instructions to the various elders, ensuring everything was in order. Very soon, the news spread throughout the entire Loose Cultivator Alliance, shaking the entire sect. Under Jiang Chengxuan's suggestion, the existence of immortal Yuanhen was no longer hidden and was made public. It was no longer a secret known only to the disciples of the main sect. For a time, this news caused an uproar throughout all the territories under the rule of the Loose Cultivator Immortal sect. Countless cultivators, immortals, and even affiliated sects were all shocked and astounded by this revelation. This was the first time they learned that aside from Jiang Chengxuan, their sect also had another earth immortal. Such news left people dumbfounded, stunned like wooden statues. Moreover, accompanying the news of immortal Yuanhen's existence was the revelation that Jiang Chengxuan had broken through to the early stage of Earth Immortal. Two Earth Immortals, one of whom had reached the mid-stage of Earth Immortal, represented a tremendous power that elevated the Loose Cultivator Alliance's status within the Xianxia Immortal region to a whole new level. It must be understood that Earth Immortals are Dominator-level figures, capable of holding sway over entire regions of an immortal realm. Especially during the current era of the Great Tribulation in the immortal realm, Earth Immortals were even more coveted by various forces. An Earth Immortal could suppress the eruption of Tribulation Chi, safeguarding a land and protecting billions of immortals. In such times, an Earth Immortal could easily subjugate hundreds, if not thousands, of forces. Those sects without the protection of an Earth Immortal had no choice but to bow in submission. Otherwise, when the Great Tribulation fully erupted, without an Earth Immortal's shelter or a blessed land to rely on, no matter how proud they were, their only path would be death. Such shocking news, needless to say, quickly spread beyond the Loose Cultivator Alliance. Through the disciples, the news rapidly spread across the entire western continent of the Xianxia Immortal region and gradually swept through the entire region. The various forces in the western continent were especially shaken by this news. Two Earth Immortal Dominators, such power was enough to change the entire landscape of the western continent. In response, the entire continent began to shift. Many forces that were previously dissatisfied with the loose cultivator alliance were now the first to announce their desire to form alliances with them. In no time, countless secret letters from all over arrived at the loose cultivator alliance, and waves of cultivators from various forces braved numerous obstacles, attempting to visit the alliance. Within just a few days, no fewer than 100 immortal sects had sent messages hoping to receive the assistance of the loose cultivator alliance and expressing their willingness to form alliances. Among them, many sects had been devastated by tribulation chi, their homes destroyed and their sects annihilated. They begged the loose cultivator alliance to lead them in suppressing the tribulation chi and reclaiming their lost lands. Some of these forces possessed abundant resources, and even the loose cultivator alliance couldn't ignore the stakes they offered. In this era, such offerings were essentially life-saving money, and no one would be stingy in such a critical time. Otherwise, it would be like saying you think your life is too long. As a result, all eyes were now on the long-dormant loose cultivator alliance. The alliance's gates were bustling, with visitors arriving constantly, making the sect's headquarters a lively place. In this atmosphere, even the status of the loose cultivator alliance's disciples improved considerably. They were warmly welcomed and treated with respect wherever they went in the immortal realm. One important point that could not be overlooked was that the loose cultivator alliance, as an emerging high-level force in the immortal realm, had developed at an astonishing speed, something no one could have anticipated. Moreover, they didn't rely on the support of any other immortal sect. Xianxia alone had driven their rapid rise. Thus, they didn't have many existing allies, unlike other established powers with fixed interests and chains of alliances that couldn't easily accept new sects. However, the loose cultivator alliance was different. They still had many open positions for friendly forces, which made them an irresistible temptation for sects without Earth immortal protectors. As the alliance continued to host wave after wave of visitors, their reputation soared rather than diminished. The number of immortal sects wanting to form alliances with them grew steadily, and the stakes they offered increased as sects competed with one another. Even Xianxia, who had orchestrated all of this, hadn't anticipated this level of response. He was taken aback. He had originally planned to take advantage of the Great Tribulation to recruit some forces and advance the loose cultivator alliance further. However, he hadn't expected to underestimate the alliance's potential euros, or perhaps his own allure. In just a short time, the fierce competition between these sects even brought him rare treasures, such as origin items. The power that delivered this precious item didn't have an Earth immortal, but by some stroke of fortune, they had obtained a treasure of great value, allowing Xianxia to seize an unexpected opportunity. He immediately took the sect under the loose cultivator alliance's banner, agreeing to form an alliance and promising to protect them when the Great Tribulation fully erupted. This news delighted that immortal sect, making it a win-win situation. At the same time, this development spurred other sects into action. They began to raise their stakes, sending all kinds of immortal treasures and mystical items, hoping to win Xianxia's favor. Chapter 1333. Immortal Name Shakes the World, Suppressing Tribulation Chi Part 2. Chapter 1333. Immortal Name Shakes the World, Suppressing Tribulation Chi Part 2. This commotion lasted for several months before it gradually settled down. In the end, around 20 immortal sects successfully formed alliances with the loose cultivator alliance, either due to their profound foundations or because they offered invaluable treasures. These alliances brought a massive influx of resources, greatly contributing to the growth of the loose cultivator alliance. As a result, many of Xianxia's preparations for the impending immortal realm tribulation could now proceed as planned. For a time, the entire loose cultivator alliance began to mobilize, setting in motion efforts throughout the western continent and even across the Xianxia immortal realm to prepare for the coming tribulation. Once the critical arrangements were set, Xianxia handed the execution of these tasks over to Qin Shenwu. During the following period, Xianxia and Shen Ruyan traveled to various regions where tribulation chi had emerged, beginning their mission to suppress the growing tribulation energy. After all, they had promised the Earth immortals of the Western continent that they would do so. Now that everyone was contributing their efforts, it was only right for them to act as well. Throughout their journey, Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan appeared at various locations where tribulation qi had erupted, suppressing the sources of the tribulation with incredible speed and efficiency. Given Jiang Chengxuan's current cultivation level, entering smaller tribulation zones was as easy as a fish swimming through water. He could single-handedly venture into the source of the tribulation qi, contend with its essence, and suppress or absorb it. With his understanding and insights into tribulation qi, Jiang Chengxuan felt no fear. Unlike other Earth immortals who were wary of the dangers, he possessed the means to heal even if injured by tribulation qi euros, thanks to the true tribulation pill. Other Earth immortals dared not casually engage with the essence of tribulation qi for fear of entangling themselves in karmic repercussions that might disrupt their immortal paths. For them, suppressing tribulation qi was just a task, a duty to protect their sex. If it risked injury, the gains would not outweigh the losses. An Earth immortal's status was paramount, and their mere willingness to suppress tribulation qi was already considered a divine blessing to the common people. Lady Shen, this place is taken care of. Let's move to the next tribulation zone. In a valley, Jiang Chengxuan emerged from the earth, breaking through layers of tribulation qi, tearing through space as he rose. Calmly, he spoke to Shen Ruyan, who stood nearby in her white robes. In his hand was a pulsating black objecta euros, the heart of tribulation, the source of the tribulation qi in this location. It resembled a semi-real, semi-illusory gray crystal, filled with swirling tribulation energy. With each pulse, the void trembled and strands of blood-red light seemed to emanate from the air around it, revealing a destructive intent. Even with her current cultivation level, Shen Ruyan couldn't help but feel a trace of unease at the sight. However, in Jiang Chengxuan's hands, no matter how it struggled, the heart was firmly gripped and couldn't break free. This was the third tribulation zone that Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan had suppressed in this short period. Compared to other Earth immortals, their efficiency was far superior. In two of these zones, Jiang Chengxuan had used thunderous means to extract the essence of the tribulation qi, severely depleting the zone's power. What others avoided, Jiang Chengxuan viewed as a hunting ground to euros, a treasure trove of opportunities. However, this wasn't always the case. In one particularly dangerous tribulation zone, Jiang Chengxuan encountered a crisis. Facing the overwhelming power of the tribulation qi, he had to call upon the power of his Earth immortal blessed land to escape safely. The essence of that zone's tribulation qi had been out of reach, forcing him to retreat. At another tribulation site, Jiang Chengxuan encountered another Earth immortal attempting to steal his spoils. Without hesitation, Jiang Chengxuan revealed his mid-stage Earth immortal cultivation and swiftly suppressed the would-be thief, forcing the intruder to flee. These encounters demonstrated the unpredictability of the Great Tribulation that was unfolding across the immortal realm. Despite Jiang Chengxuan's advancements, he could not guarantee that he could suppress every challenge the tribulation brought. Perhaps I should refine more tribulation pills and similar elixirs as a precaution, Jiang Chengxuan mused. With several tribulation essences in his possession, he now had the essential materials needed to refine more true tribulation pills. Why not use these resources to prepare for the unknown? Meanwhile, the storm set off by the loose cultivator alliance quickly swept across the western continent. Thanks to Jiang Chengxuan and Shen Ruyan's efforts in suppressing the tribulation qi, the situation in the western continent had stabilized significantly. One by one, the tribulation zones disappeared from the land, leaving countless cultivators and immortals in awe. It was no exaggeration to say that Jiang Chengxuan's speed and efficiency were equivalent to the combined efforts of 3 ordinary Earth immortals. This feat put immense pressure on the immortal sex, yet it also greatly relieved them. From this day forward, Jiang Chengxuan's name would truly shake the western continent, if not the entire Xuanming immortal realm. Unlike the time when he first broke through to become an Earth immortal and transitioned from obscurity to fame, this time, he had cemented his reputation with his own strength and accomplishments. He was no longer regarded as a novice, but as a true powerhouse, whose might surpassed even some of the older Earth immortals. His prestige was genuine, forged through battle, and even those who were skeptical before had no choice but to accept it in silence. Soon, another wave of the Great Tribulation was subdued, and for a while, the world returned to a semblance of calm. The once active tribulation zones fell dormant, granting people a brief respite. Although the next eruption of tribulation chi might be even more terrifying euros, possibly signaling the true arrival of the immortal realm's great tribulation euros, for the moment, everyone was filled with relief and joy. They celebrated, basking in the sunlight and toasting with fine wine. Xianxia, my young friend, long time no see. Haha, your reputation has shaken the entire Xianxia immortal realm recently. Mid this, as Jiang Xianxia and Shen Ruyan arrived at the gates of the Tianlong mountain range, immortal Fuguang greeted them with a broad smile. After another round of suppressing tribulation chi, the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce quickly organized an Earth Immortal Exchange Conference. Seizing the opportunity, they invited Earth Immortals to share their experiences in suppressing tribulation chi, exchange resources, and replenish their strength in preparation for the next wave of the Great Tribulation. Naturally, Jiang Xianxia and Shen Ruyan accepted the invitation. Jiang Xianxia had plans to gather more elixirs and materials to refine additional tribulation pills. Returning the greeting, Jiang Xianxia modestly replied, "Elder He, it has indeed been a while. You're still as energetic as ever. Such trivial fame is hardly worth mentioning. I only emerged from seclusion a bit late, leaving all of you to handle the hard work." As he spoke, several other Earth Immortals approached, warmly joining the conversation. "Jiang Taoist, your methods are already well known. Yes, I doubt anyone else has suppressed more tribulation zones than you." Many Earth Immortals chimed in, praising Jiang Xianxia's accomplishments. Clearly, his recent feats had earned their respect. In the world of cultivation, strength commanded respect. No one dared to treat Jiang Xianxia as a junior anymore, and their conversations now carried a tone of camaraderie and even attempts to forge alliances. Seeing this, Jiang Xianxia didn't act overly aloof. He exchanged pleasantries with the others, and soon, all the invited Earth Immortals gathered for the exchange conference. The conference's focal point was none other than Jiang Xianxia and Immortal Yuanhen, who had accompanied him. Indeed, this conference had been organized specifically because of them. Chapter 1334, The End of the Transaction, Tribulation Chi Suddenly Appears, Part 1. Chapter 1334, The End of the Transaction, Tribulation Chi Suddenly Appears, Part 1. At Tianlong Immortal Mountain, many Earth Immortal cultivators from the southern region of Xianxia Immortal Realm had gathered. Another crucial trading conference, one that could potentially shift the balance of power, was underway. In a garden suffused with immortal light, figures of great presence strolled about, discussing the many hidden matters concerning the Xianxia Immortal Realm. These individuals were all Earth Immortals, overseeing mighty immortal sects and safeguarding billions of lives. Among them were, naturally, Jiang Xianxia and Immortal Yuanhen. The two of them walked alongside other Earth Immortal cultivators, engaging in deep conversations. Many of these people were acquaintances of Jiang Xianxia, or individuals with whom he had some past connection. For instance, the Earth Immortal Patriarch of the Jinyuan Immortal sect was present. Jiang Xianxia had once refined an Earth Immortal grade elixir for him, and in exchange, the Patriarch had sent disciples to provide key information that helped Shen Ruyan seize the celestial tribulation lightning, greatly aiding her progress. That transaction had also led Jiang Xianxia to meet Immortal Yuanhen, and ultimately brought him into the loose cultivator alliance. In that sense, the Jinyuan Immortal Patriarch could be considered a benefactor to Jiang Xianxia. Although the two had not interacted much since that initial exchange, they were both satisfied with the outcome. Upon meeting again, they struck up a conversation and grew more familiar with each other. This is the honored Lotus Immortal from the Shenlian Immortal sect. Beside Immortal Yuanhen, Immortal Fuguang was busy introducing the various guests, helping him integrate into the circle of Earth Immortal cultivators from the western continent of Xianxia, just as he had once done for Jiang Xianxia. All right, enough small talk. With the Great Tribulation looming, strength is the only answer to break through the crisis. Everyone, if you have any requests or ideas, feel free to speak up. If someone can meet your needs, I hope there will be no hesitation. After some time, the group arrived at a platform nestled within a valley. They sat on cushions around a furnace brewing tea, and Immortal Fuguang, as the host, spoke with a solemn tone, formally starting the trading conference. Upon hearing this, everyone grew serious, setting aside their casual demeanor. Soon, an elderly figure dressed in yellow robes, embroidered with images of divine dragons and immortal mountains, stood up. His white hair and beard gave him the air of an immortal sage. Since the matter is urgent, allow me to start. Recently, in the western Black Sea, there have been signs of movimenta euros, possibly the stirring of tribulation chi. You are all aware of the mysteries hidden within that place. I hope to find some companions willing to join me in investigating the situation, to prevent a potential calamity. He wasn't talking about trading resources, but rather making a request for help. This wasn't uncommon in such Earth immortal gatherings, as personal favors and assistance were often exchanged, with witnesses present to ensure the agreements were honored. In the midst of this, Jiang Chengxuan remained silent. Although suppressing tribulation chi was not difficult for him, the western Black Sea was far away, and he had other plans, so he wasn't inclined to get involved. Thus, the conference opened with an awkward silence. The importance of the tribulation was undeniable, and with the mysterious nature of the western Black Sea, no one wanted to take on this dangerous task. Sai. Just as the elderly man and immortal Fuguang sighed and were about to move on, someone unexpected spoke up. If you trust me, I will accompany you. Hearing this, everyone looked up in surprise. The one who had spoken was none other than immortal Yuanhen, a newcomer to this gathering. Even Jiang Chengxuan was a little taken aback, but when Yuanhen glanced at him, he did not object, giving a slight nod. He wouldn't limit Yuanhen's actions, after all. Yuanhen was an elder of the loose cultivator alliance, not a subordinate, and Jiang Chengxuan respected his autonomy. After a moment's thought, Jiang Chengxuan quickly understood Yuanhen's reasoning. Being new to the group, taking on such a risky task was a way for Yuanhen to prove himself. It was like presenting his credentials, showing the other Earth immortals that he wasn't afraid of challenges and that he had confidence in his abilities. In this special period, such an action was sure to win him favor and recognition from the other Earth immortals of the Western continent. Immediately, the yellow-robed elder who had made the request, as well as immortal Fuguang, both beamed with joy and quickly expressed their gratitude to immortal Yuanhen. If you are willing to lend a hand, I am deeply grateful. Although he didn't know Yuanhen well, as long as Yuanhen was an Earth immortal, his support would be a tremendous help. Immortal Yuanhen has just arrived, and is already willing to contribute to the Western continent's efforts. Truly, you are a man of great virtue. Immortal Fuguang also offered high praise to Yuanhen, addressing the gathering with admiration in his tone. At this, Jiang Chengxuan smiled and offered his approval, and the other Earth immortals nodded appreciatively, directing their praise toward Yuanhen. In response, Yuanhen remained humble, bowing slightly to return the gesture. With this, the first matter of the trading conference was settled, setting a positive tone for the rest of the event. Following this, the more challenging requests were behind them, and the Earth immortals began to bring out their treasures for the formal resource exchange. Among the items were rare objects related to the essence of tribulation, as well as immortal pills, treasures, and materials of all kinds of euros, all at the Earth immortal level. For his part, Jiang Chengxuan had prepared several rare items, intending to trade for the materials he needed. Chapter 1335. The end of the transaction, Tribulation Chi suddenly appears. Part 2, Chapter 1335. The end of the transaction, Tribulation Chi suddenly appears. Part 2, Jiang Chengxuan had various types of immortal pills on hand, including both offensive and defensive varieties, as well as those that assisted in cultivation. When he brought them out for trade, they immediately drew the attention of many Earth immortals. Combined with his fair and reasonable pricing, his offers were quickly accepted, and many were eager to make exchanges. In no time, as the deals continued, the immortal pills in Jiang Chengxuan's possession rapidly decreased. Before long, he had gathered all the materials he needed to refine the true tribulation pills. Though he hadn't amassed a great deal of extra resources in this trade, he had successfully exchanged some unused treasures for more essential items needed for tribulation preparation. Jiang Chengxuan was satisfied with the outcome. After all, what good were treasures if they couldn't be safeguarded? Even those sects that had held precious immortal mountains and lands had crumbled to dust under the onslaught of tribulation chi, their legacy reduced to nothing. Having endured many hardships, Jiang Chengxuan understood the importance of not being greedy. By making these exchanges, he not only helped secure the future of the loose cultivator alliance, but also indirectly contributed to stabilizing the situation in the southern continent of Xianxia immortal realm of Euros, a win-win situation. Farewell, everyone. Until we meet again, the great tribulation is coming. I hope you all stay vigilant. A few days later, at the entrance of the heavenly dragon Immortal Valley, Immortal Fuguang bid farewell to the Earth Immortals who had gathered. The Earth Immortal Exchange Conference had finally concluded, and all the attendees had received what they came for. Whether they sought resources, assistance, or insights, their goals had been met. After the resource exchanges, they had continued conversing for a while, sharing intelligence and news with each other. Now, compared to when they had first arrived, everyone's demeanor had improved. It was clear that most had gained something from this conference. After all, there was an unspoken rule at such Earth Immortal gatherings of Euros. Everyone had to participate in the exchange. Simply showing up to listen without trading would be frowned upon. Those who attended without engaging in trades risked being seen as hoarding their resources and would make future transactions difficult. "I won't be long. I'll return soon," said Immortal Yuanhen, who stood next to the yellow-robed Earth Immortal Elder. He addressed Jiang Chengxuan before setting off. Hearing this, Jiang Chengxuan waved his hand with a smile, responding, "Take your time, but be cautious of the tribulation Qi. Honored Elder Huang Yu and Yuanhen, please be careful and take care of yourselves," Jiang Chengxuan added. With the conclusion of the conference, Immortal Yuanhen was about to accompany Elder Huang to explore the western Black Sea, as previously discussed. Jiang Chengxuan's words prompted both of them to bow slightly in acknowledgement, before transforming into beams of immortal light and disappearing into the distance. At their level, farewells were swift and straightforward. There was no need for lingering goodbyes of Euros. When it was time to leave, they left without hesitation. Farewell, everyone. Taking this as a cue, the other Earth Immortals from various sects also began to take their leave. Bowing respectfully to Immortal Fuguang and Jiang Chengxuan, they summoned their immortal power and, in an instant, crossed thousands of miles through the void to depart. Soon, the heavenly dragon Immortal Valley, previously bustling with immortal energy and activity, was left with only Immortal Fuguang and Jiang Chengxuan. The two shared a good rapport, and since they were together, they naturally took the opportunity to converse further. "Haha, Chengxuan, my young friend, I've heard that your alchemy skills have recently improved. Would you be willing to share some insights on the path of alchemy with an old man like me?" "Haha, since Elder He is interested, I'd be happy to oblige," Jiang Chengxuan replied. Mid their casual conversation, Immortal Fuguang invited Jiang Chengxuan to stay as a guest at the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce. "The medicinal ingredient you require will arrive in a few days. I hope you won't mind staying a bit longer until our merchants deliver it," Immortal Fuguang explained, revealing another reason why Jiang Chengxuan had chosen to remain. Jiang Chengxuan wasn't in any rush, so he calmly settled down at the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce to wait. However, he could never have predicted that this brief stay would lead to a significant danger. While Jiang Chengxuan and Immortal Fuguang were chatting, deep within the heavenly Dragon Valley, an eerie power had been brewing in secret for some time. One day, while Jiang Chengxuan was meditating in his quarters at the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, a sudden chill surged through him, causing him to shudder. He immediately opened his eyes, his expression growing serious. As an Earth Immortal, his sensitivity to omens and celestial changes was extraordinary, and for him to feel such dread meant that something significant was about to happen. Before he could investigate, a deafening boom erupted. From somewhere within the heavenly dragon Immortal Valley, a thunderous explosion reverberated. The immense, ear-splitting sound echoed through the long valley, amplifying its intensity. Waves of sound visibly distorted the space, rippling across the vast mountain range. "What's happening? Is something exploding? A treasure maybe? What terrifying power? This isn't right." Euros quickly, notify the Patriarch. Instantly, the disciples and elders of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce were thrown into panic, rushing out of their dwellings and halls in confusion, trying to locate the source of the disturbance. The power unleashed was clearly uncontrollable. It was apparent that something foreign had infiltrated the heavenly Dragon Valley of Euros, something that defied all expectations. For the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, which had maintained strict defenses for millions of years, this was a nearly unthinkable breach. With their powerful defenses, Not even an earth immortal could easily infiltrate the heavenly Dragon Valley. After all, the valley housed many valuable immortal treasures that even deities coveted. Without adequate protection, the chamber would have long been plundered. SSS. What a terrifying aura. Even Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The force that had suddenly erupted was extraordinary, enough to make even him take notice. In the next moment, Jiang Chengxuan's body surged with immortal energy. With a single step, he employed the power of spatial manipulation, instantly traversing thousands of miles. Almost simultaneously, immortal Fuguang, shimmering in radiant golden light, appeared beside him. It's tribulation chi. When they arrived near the point of the explosion, the scene before them left both Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang stunned. In the distance, a towering pitch-black whirlwind swirled amidst the valley, crackling with crimson lightning. The overwhelming aura of destruction and primordial energy that filled the air left no doubt a Euros. This was the eruption of tribulation chi. Elder He, what is happening here? Jiang Chengxuan asked in shock as he turned to immortal Fuguang. Immortal Fuguang's face had turned ashen, and his heart was racing with anxiety. He shouted, "Chengxuan, help me suppress this tribulation chi immediately." Inside, immortal Fuguang was filled with terror. Tribulation chi had emerged in the heart of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce's most secure area, the Heavenly Dragon Valley, and he hadn't noticed it until it exploded. The implications were chilling, and fear gripped his heart. Understood. Jiang Chengxuan wasted no time, and alongside immortal Fuguang, they both summoned their Earth Immortal Blessed Lands. In an instant, two vast swaths of immortal lands appeared, radiating with ethereal light and immense primordial energy. Together, they surged forward, pressing down upon the whirlwind of tribulation chi. The fact that tribulation chi had somehow emerged within the Heavenly Dragon Valley was a disturbing mystery that weighed heavily on both of them. Neither could shake the feeling that this tribulation was far from ordinary. Chapter 1336, Triple Reincarnation, Under the Tribulation Calamity, Part 1. Chapter 1336, Triple Reincarnation, Under the Tribulation Calamity, Part 1. In the vast expanse of the world, colorful clouds filled the sky, gathering into a grand curtain of light. Below it, towering mountains stretched endlessly, a testament to the immensity of heaven and earth. What would have been an awe-inspiring scene of beauty now became a sight of terror, enough to send shivers down one's spine. In just a few breaths' time, the expansive sky became crowded and menacing. A towering black pillar shot up from the ground, piercing the heavens. Accompanied by a strange, ominous aura and crackling crimson lightning, thick black fog unfurled across the sky like spilled ink, rapidly spreading over the land. This dark mist carried a sense of destruction with it, and wherever it passed, even the void itself crackled and fractured, leaving tiny cracks behind. The space that was once stable was now devoured by the black fog, leaving it fragile and fragmented. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, the pitch-black whirlwind grew explosively, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. In one breath, it covered dozens of miles, consuming countless living beings. But in the next moment, two immense forces erupted from the heavens. Two beams of brilliant immortal light burst forth, transforming into shadows as large as mountain ranges. With a thunderous roar, two immortal lands appeared, their size growing exponentially until they resembled massive celestial stars that blocked out the sun. Rumble! Immediately, two torrents of immortal energy surged through the void like heavenly ravines, crashing heavily against the towering black pillar. In an instant, three sources of primordial energy collided and exploded in a storm of destruction. The deafening thunder of their clash echoed for thousands of miles, unleashing massive waves of spatial distortion. This was the full power of Earth Immortal Cultivators. Their might was so overwhelming that the very fabric of the void was ground to dust. The spreading black clouds were temporarily pushed back toward the black pillar they had emanated from. What formidable tribulation chi! Despite their efforts, the individual who unleashed their power muttered in dissatisfaction, their expression grim. The two waves of Earth Immortal energy, of course, came from Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang. At the moment the tribulation chi had erupted, they had rushed to the scene to suppress it. However, the results were far from ideal. Although they had managed to forcibly drive back the expanding tribulation chi, the black whirlwind column at its core remained unscathed, only slightly trembling from their attack. This made it clear that this tribulation calamity was far from ordinary. Its power was immense and likely represented a triple reincarnation tribulation. The concept of reincarnation tribulation had been discussed and theorized during the Earth Immortal Exchange Conference. In their journeys to various places to suppress tribulation chi, they had discovered that while the essence of tribulation chi remained consistent, the strength of its outbreaks varied greatly. Take Jiang Chengxuan's own experiences, for example. In some tribulation zones, he could move freely, as if taking items from his own pocket. The tribulation source was easily suppressed with minimal effort. But in other places, things were different. Some tribulation zones had such dense concentrations of tribulation chi that even with his high cultivation, Jiang Chengxuan had to proceed cautiously to suppress them. In these cases, he could not even seize the tribulation essence and could only seal it away. Other Earth Immortal cultivators had also noticed this pattern. While they could handle the average tribulation zones on their own, certain locations required the combined efforts of two Earth Immortals to suppress the calamity. This was why so many Earth Immortals were constantly occupied, struggling to keep up with the pace of suppressing the tribulation outbreaks. From these experiences, the Earth Immortals had drawn a conclusion. The Great Tribulation of the Immortal Realm, which occurred every million years, wasn't uniform. As with the simplest concept of time, a million years could refer to 1 million, 2 million, or even 9 million years. As long as it didn't cross the 10 million year mark, it could still be called a million-year tribulation. Those more dangerous tribulation zones were evidently remnants of the previous million-year tribulation, whose essence had lingered and intensified over the ages, now manifesting again. They began to call these zones two reincarnation tribulation zones. For simplicity, Jiang Chengxuan and the other Earth Immortals agreed to use the term reincarnation to describe these events. A 2 million year tribulation would be called a double reincarnation tribulation, and so on. And now, the tribulation unfolding in front of Jiang Chengxuan and Immortal Fuguang in the Heavenly Dragon Immortal Valley was clearly not a simple tribulation of euros. It was a reincarnation tribulation. Moreover, there was a strong possibility that this tribulation had reached the level of a triple reincarnation. Despite the presence of two Earth Immortals euros, one of them being Jiang Chengxuan, who had the ability to suppress a double reincarnation tribulation on his own euros, their combined efforts were not enough to fully contain this disaster. There was no doubt that this tribulation was stronger than any they had encountered before. Only a tribulation of such magnitude could have defied the laws of the great immortal realm tribulation, and erupted even after most other tribulation outbreaks had been subdued. This calamity, in essence, had the power to resist the very laws of nature governing the Great Tribulation, breaking free from the natural order. At this thought, Immortal Fuguang's heart sank even further. The fact that such a disaster had been hidden within the Heavenly Dragon Immortal Valley was deeply unsettling. Now, he was the only one guarding the valley. How could he possibly resolve such a crisis? Don't panic just yet, Elder Fuguang. For now, let's evacuate the disciples from the valley, and then we can make further plans, said Jiang Chengxuan, standing beside him, guiding the Earth Immortal Blessed Land. His words offered a glimmer of calm in the midst of chaos. Chapter 1337, Triple Reincarnation Under the Tribulation Calamity, Part 2. Chapter 1337, Triple Reincarnation Under the Tribulation Calamity, Part 2. Jiang Chengxuan unleashed layer upon layer of immortal power, continuously suppressing the space around him as he spoke to Immortal Fuguang. Upon hearing his words, Fuguang finally reined in his panic, nodding in acknowledgement. He then retrieved a jade gold token from his robes, injecting it with spiritual power, and declared, "All disciples of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce and all honored guests, hear me. A tribulation calamity has erupted in the Immortal Valley Euros. Evacuate immediately, no delays." His grave message resonated through the token, echoing in the tokens of every disciple. In an instant, the entire Tianlong Immortal Valley received the news. None of the cultivators hesitated. Their faces turned pale with terror as they rushed toward the exits. The elders of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce gasped in shock for a brief moment before swiftly commanding their disciples to secure the treasures of the chamber, then ordered them to retreat from the valley. It wasn't cowardice euros. Rather, They understood that anyone below the level of an earth immortal was nothing more than an ant in the face of a tribulation calamity. Staying behind would only mean being buried alongside Tianlong Immortal Valley. Thus, within just a few breaths after Immortal Fuguang issued the command, countless figures flew out of the valley, like flocks of startled crows. Some drove treasure-laden carriages, shimmering with immortal light, while others stepped into the void, transforming into streaks of light that fled from the valley. The skies above became filled with a dark mass of figures, all racing to escape. Brilliant rays of light rushed ahead, weaving through the sky, all aiming for the safety of the valley's exit. As they beheld the towering black whirlwind in the distance and felt the suffocating presence of the tribulation chi, their hearts trembled with fear. In their panic, they abandoned all other concerns. Tribulation chi had become a dreaded and infamous force throughout the Xianxia immortal realm after centuries of destruction. Countless people in immortal sects had fallen to its terror, with no regard for rank or power. Even those who were once considered untouchable Euros, immortals, ascended beings and true immortals Euros, had all perished during tribulations. At first, some cultivators might have experienced a twisted sense of satisfaction at seeing once mighty figures fall. But as the tribulation spread and disaster struck again and again across the Xianxia immortal realm, their fleeting greed was replaced with pure, overwhelming fear. The very mention of tribulation was enough to strike terror into their hearts. For Jiang Chengxuan and Immortal Fuguang, seeing the evacuation unfold smoothly was a relief. When the tribulation truly erupted, they wouldn't have the luxury of protecting anyone. Besides, having more people around would only make the situation harder to control. Boom! 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 The thunder in the void grew, even more terrifying as black mist exploded outward. Multicolored immortal lights shattered into pieces, falling like clouds from the sky. All the while, the pillar of tribulation chi continued to expand, bit by bit, devouring everything in its path. The mountains of the Tianlong Range, along with its once thriving spiritual plants, were all consumed and turned into nourishment for the black whirlwind. Everything was swept into the storm and transformed into black fog. Jiang Chengxuan and Immortal Fuguang's immortal power, surging across thousands of miles, shot toward the black whirlwind, but even their combined strength struggled to suppress it. The space around them warped and twisted from the clash of forces, revealing the immense power at play. Even Jiang Chengxuan furrowed his brows in frustration. Based on his understanding of tribulation chi and his previous experiences in suppressing calamities, the origin of this disaster had clearly surpassed the level of a double reincarnation tribulation. This much was certain. This was the first time he had encountered a tribulation of such magnitude. And all of this had occurred simply because he had stayed in Tianlong Immortal Valley for a few extra days. "Sai, it seems this valley really doesn't welcome my presence," Jiang Chengxuan remarked with a bitter smile, maintaining a light-hearted tone even in the face of disaster. Immortal Fuguang was briefly stunned, unsure of how to respond. He hadn't expected Jiang Chengxuan to be joking in such a moment. But then, this was typical of Jiang Chengxuan's personality a Euros. No mere tribulation could shake his inner composure. "Sai, this tribulation came so violently and suddenly. It looks like my Tianlong Immortal Valley cannot be saved," Immortal Fuguang finally lamented, his voice tinged with sorrow. Tianlong Immortal Valley had been his home for countless millennia. Since the day he ascended to immortality, he had devoted his life to the valley, nurturing its growth and serving it day and night. It was the main branch of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, one of the three great commerce chambers in the Xianxia immortal realm, and its construction had consumed countless treasures and immortal crystals. And now, with the onset of this tribulation, everything was destined to turn into nothing but a fleeting cloud. 1,000,000 years of accumulation was collapsing in an instant. How could he not feel a deep sense of regret and sadness? Jiang Chengxuan understood this sentiment, but he didn't offer any words of comfort. Instead, he focused on continuing to release his immortal energy, suppressing the ever-expanding black whirlwind of tribulation chi, ensuring that the fleeing cultivators could escape safely. Amid the tense and dangerous atmosphere, time seemed to drag on as every second ticked by. It wasn't until the pitch-black storm had spread to consume over 100 miles of land that the last of the cultivators had fled Tianlong Immortal Valley. The valley was now completely empty, its people gone. Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Guang exchanged a glance as they stood before the rapidly approaching calamity. In the blink of an eye, they unleashed their full power. Jiang Chengxuan's spiritual light surged from the top of his head as he summoned the 5 elements heaven and earth diagram, transforming it into the yin-yang treasure pearl, infusing it with his immortal energy. The essence of life immortal dew within the pearl turned into a nourishing rain that fell gently over both of them, replenishing their depleted immortal power and surrounding them in a radiant aura of energy. In the next instant, immortal Guang pulled back his stream of immortal energy and summoned his own immortal treasure with a powerful shout, pouring his entire strength into it. The treasure took the form of a strange long blade, crafted from the horn of an immortal beast, glowing with a brilliant light. Boom! In an instant, the terrifying power of the blade shattered the space in its path, creating a vast stretch of nothingness in the void. The blade's energy clashed with the tribulation chi, resulting in a massive explosion that shook the heavens. Mountains crumbled in an instant, sending boulders tumbling as the entire valley shook under the shockwaves. The air was filled with swirling waves of immortal energy. The battle had officially begun, breaking the eerie stillness that had surrounded them. As expected, the tribulation chi whirlwind retaliated in full force. Within the eye of the storm, black light began to pulse, while torrents of crimson lightning surged upward like twisted red serpents, coiling around the storm's black pillar. These crimson snakes covered the surface of the black whirlwind, forming an ever-boiling layer of electricity over it. The red lightning and the energy from Guang's blade continued to clash, shaking the very fabric of space, sending ripples and shockwaves through the void. Immortal Guang's expression turned grim as he sensed his own immortal energy being gradually drained, siphoned away by the tribulation chi with every clash. 5 elements immortal light manifest. Seeing this, Jiang Chengxuan didn't hesitate to act. With a solemn expression, he activated his earth immortal blessed land behind him, causing it to rapidly expand. An endless flow of primordial energy surged forth, transforming into beams of 5-colored immortal light. These multicolored manifestations took form in the void. Blazing immortal flames scorched the heavens, while mighty immortal rivers shook the universe. Towering mountains rose layer by layer, and vast forests spread across the skies, devouring everything in their path. Golden immortal metal surged, swallowing the very void itself. The power of the 5 elements, fully manifested and fused with primordial energy, became an incredibly destructive force that instantly pierced through the black mist and shot toward the heart of the tribulation chi whirlwind. Boom! As this attack landed, the entire world seemed to pause for a moment, frozen in distortion. The once unstoppable pillar of tribulation chi finally trembled. Countless bolts of crimson lightning scattered outward, devouring everything within hundreds of miles. The black fog, twisted and eerie, was forcefully dispersed by the impact. For the first time, the tribulation chi's attempts to siphon energy from immortal Guang were halted. However, even such an immense attack failed to completely shatter the core of the black whirlwind. After a brief pause, the tribulation storm only intensified, surging back with even greater fury. Chapter 1338, Suppressing the Tribulation Calamity, Part 1. Chapter 1338, Suppressing the Tribulation Calamity, Part 1. Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Guang's combined attacks ignited the full fury of the tribulation. The overwhelming tribulation chi, dense enough to blot out the sky for thousands of miles, became violent in an instant, as if determined to destroy the entire world. When Jiang Chengxuan's 5 elements immortal light collided with the tribulation chi, the earth trembled unceasingly, and the void twisted into distortion. The tribulation whirlwind roared, transforming into massive black waves that surged upward like a celestial river crashing down from the heavens. From a distance, one could see a twisted black line stretching across the horizon, growing larger and larger, until it became a dark curtain covering the sky. It devoured everything in its path: euros, mountains, immortal spiritual energy, and even the very essence of space. In the blink of an eye, it was upon them, crashing down like a mountain falling from the sky. Within this apocalyptic scene, Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Guang could make out the forms of giant serpents, their semi-illusory bodies writhing within the black waves. These serpents roared and thrashed, their massive jaws biting through the turbulent tribulation waves as they surged forward. These serpents were manifestations of the tribulation's destructive essence, conjured from the calamity itself. Their power was terrifying, and in a matter of moments, much of the Tianlong mountain range was swallowed by the darkness. The world became pitch black, with nothing visible save for the eerie howls of the serpents echoing in the void. The world in that instant seemed to be entirely deprived of light. Tianlong 9 Revolution's immortal array, activate. Immortal Fuguang shouted, realizing there was no room for hesitation. With a booming cry, he unleashed the first of his trump cards. In an instant, his immortal energy surged, transforming into a torrent of brilliant light that illuminated the darkened heavens. From deep within the Tianlong mountain, dazzling streams of immortal light began to flicker, one after another, connecting in intricate patterns to form an immensely complex and powerful array. This was the array that protected the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, the signature formation of a high-ranking force in the immortal realm. Naturally, it was no ordinary defense. As immortal Fuguang activated the array, its power burst forth in all its grandeur. The array's intricate runes exuded an overwhelming aura, shaking the heavens themselves. Massive pillars of light, intricately carved with patterns of glass and crystal, rose from the void like towering spires that pierced the sky. In an instant, the entire region was enveloped by the array's power, standing in opposition to the incoming tribulation chi serpents. Rora Euros. Rora Euros. Under the protection of the Tianlong 9 Revolution's immortal array, the shattered Tianlong mountain exhibited a miraculous reaction. Dragon roars echoed across the sky as 9 ethereal dragon shadows emerged from the mountains. Their eyes glowed with divine light, and their bodies crackled with thunderous lightning, swirling and stirring the clouds around them. A mountain is just a mountain, but with dragons it becomes sacred. Each of the 9 dragons was colossal, their massive forms making even the vast Tianlong mountain range seem small in comparison. In the next moment, the 9 dragons roared in unison, their bodies cloaked in swirling immortal clouds. They surged forward, carrying the power of lightning and primordial energy, crashing toward the tribulation. Their power was on par with the almost triple reincarnation tribulation that they faced. For a brief moment, even Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. He gained a deeper appreciation for the underlying strength of these great immortal sects. Although immortal Fuguang was somewhat weaker than Jiang Chengxuan, with the support of this immortal array, the offensive power he unleashed had reached the level of a mid-stage Earth immortal. Rumble! Before Jiang Chengxuan could think further, the 9 dragon shadows let out a collective roar and collided with the black waves of tribulation chi. The deafening sound of their clash seemed as though it could shatter the heavens themselves. The 9 dragons tore through the black waves, engaging in a ferocious battle with the tribulation serpents. For a time, the world was covered in both black and radiant immortal light. Within the surging, twisted black waves of tribulation chi, the shadows of the 9 dragons flickered, periodically erupting with bursts of thunder and lightning that split the sky. Even distant celestial bodies were affected by the battle, dislodged from their orbits and crashing down as terrifying meteors that burned across the sky. This awe-inspiring scene could be seen and felt even by the cultivators who had fled Tianlong Mountain. The sheer force of the battle sent chills through their hearts. In the hands of such powerful immortals, the immortal realm itself seemed like a chessboard. Their every move could shake the realm to its core. If these fleeing cultivators had been caught in the conflict, they would have been instantly reduced to dust, their bones obliterated. Damn it! Immortal Fuguang gritted his teeth in frustration, letting out a growl of anguish. Even with the aid of the 9 dragon shadows and his full strength, it was clear he still struggled to match the overwhelming power of the tribulation. His immortal energy flickered and began to thin, his face contorting in pain as his body trembled under the strain. Reincarnation Domain. 7-colored immortal light. At that moment, Jiang Chengxuan made his move, unleashing a thunderous technique. Standing firmly amidst the turbulent void, Jiang Chengxuan formed a series of hand seals, activating the profound laws of the 5 elements, reincarnation, and life and death. Each law reached its peak of expression. With a solemn expression, he summoned the majestic 5-colored light, illuminating the world once more. At the same time, at the edges of heaven and earth, black and white energy appeared, swirling like the balance of purity and corruption of euros, one sinking, the other rising a euros, and they fused with the 5 elements' immortal light. Buzzy Euros. Simultaneously, the power of reincarnation surged forth, expanding rapidly, engulfing an entire region in an unstoppable, silent wave. Within this domain, all things began to flow backward. All laws of the universe were reversed. Chapter 1339, Suppressing the Tribulation Calamity, Part 2. Chapter 1339, Suppressing the Tribulation Calamity, Part 2. Even time and space twisted under the power of Jiang Chengxuan's reversal domain, no longer abiding by the normal rules. The entire battlefield was enveloped in this inverted force, its strange energy influencing the eruption of tribulation chi. Suddenly, the 9 suppressed dragon shadows surged forth, roaring as they counterattacked, tearing apart wave after wave of tribulation chi. Boom! In a fleeting moment, the 7 colored immortal Lyta Euros, red, gold, blue, yellow, green, black, and Whittia Euros, broke through the void for hundreds of miles, entering the battlefield like a divine wind. Everywhere the light touched, it suppressed and destroyed everything in its path, even dissolving the tribulation chi into nothingness. Rumble! Jiang Chengxuan's powerful intervention disrupted the flow of battle, shaking heaven and earth. The Tianlong mountain range was thrown into complete chaos as terrifying forces of destruction and tribulation chi clashed throughout the mountain, unleashing devastation in every direction. Meteors which had fallen from the sky crashed into the mountains, forming deep chasms. From these craters, boundless heavenly flames rose, reaching hundreds of feet into the air. The sheer destructive force of these immortal-level powers obliterated everything, reducing vast sections of the land to void, which relentlessly swallowed all matter. Even the rich spiritual energy of the immortal realm rapidly dissipated into nothingness. What had once been a breathtakingly beautiful scene, like a celestial paradise, was now transformed into a hellscape. The very air reeked of death and destruction. But finally, with both Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang going all out, they managed to gain the upper hand. The combined might of the 3 sources of power successfully suppressed the tribulation chi, pushing back the pitch-black fog that had spread for miles. Boom! 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 A series of thunderous explosions reverberated as the tribulation chi was repeatedly suppressed, shrinking back bit by bit. The black tribulation storm swirled wildly, struggling to break free, but it was firmly held in check by Jiang Chengxuan's reincarnation domain and the 7-colored immortal light, which shattered and dissolved it with each impact. Seeing this, a glimmer of hope appeared in immortal Fuguang's eyes. If they could maintain the suppression, and with reinforcements on the way, there was a chance that the Tianlong mountain range might not be completely destroyed. However, the situation quickly took a turn for the worse. As the tribulation chi was forced back over several hundred miles, it suddenly erupted with even greater force. A deafening clap of thunder roared through the heavens, and from the center of the tribulation storm, an enormous, tentacle-like appendage emerged a Euros, like a giant hand to Euros, striking toward the 7-colored light and the 9 dragon shadows. This single strike contained terrifying power, even overwhelming the reversal domain. The enormous tail, shrouded in deep tribulation chi and the essence of destruction, whipped through the air with blinding speed, smashing directly into their divine abilities. Rumble! The chaotic void became even more unstable under the impact. The entire sky seemed to lose its color in an instant. From the point of collision, cracks spread like a shattered mirror, sending violent currents of energy rippling outward, tearing apart the tribulation chi, but also spreading in every direction. The thunder continued to boom, and in an instant, half of the 9 dragon shadows were obliterated, their forms dissipating into the air with sorrowful roars. The powerful backlash also caused multiple cracks to appear in the Tianlong 9 Revolution's immortal array. Many of the intricate runes that formed the array were destroyed. Immortal Fuguang trembled as several wounds opened on his immortal body, bleeding from the sheer force of the counterattack. The remaining dragon shadows grew dim and weakened, barely able to continue fighting. Rumble! The massive black tail swung again, shattering Jiang Chengxuan's reversal domain. Chaos energy leaked from the cracks, scattering into the surroundings. At the same time, the 7-colored immortal light, exhausted from its previous clash, gradually faded from the sky, breaking into countless fragments of light. What is this power? Damn it! Immortal Fuguang cursed, clenching his teeth as he struggled to regain control of his immortal domain, and channel his primordial energy to stabilize the situation. Jiang Chengxuan, his expression grave but unfazed, gazed intently at the source of the tribulation. His voice was calm, but carried a weight of realization. It seems, the core of the tribulation chi has made its move. That massive black tail was undoubtedly a manifestation of the core's power. Accumulated over millions of years, the tribulation chi was unimaginably strong. With a single strike, it had broken through two near mid-stage Earth immortal abilities, a feat that was nothing short of terrifying. Be careful, it's coming again. Before they could catch their breath, the core of the tribulation launched another attack. From the center of the black pillar of tribulation chi, the enormous tail emerged once more, stirring the fog as it advanced. Suddenly, hundreds of black lights erupted from the tail, illuminating the fog with a menacing glow. Then, without warning, hundreds of eyes appeared on the tail itself, all of them blank, their surfaces swirling with mist. Without pause, beams of pitch-black light shot from these eyes, flooding the entire battlefield. Each beam of black light pierced through the void with ease, extending in all directions, crisscrossing the sky in a bizarre formation. These threads of black light carried with them the aura of tribulation chi, and strange runes began to appear along their lengths, devouring everything in their path. Reacting quickly, both Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang summoned their Earth immortal blessed lands, unleashing their primordial power to its fullest, creating layers of defensive manifestations around themselves. But everything else in the vicinity wasn't as fortunate. The remaining dragon shadows were pierced by the black beams in an instant, their mournful cries echoing as their massive bodies became transparent and dissipated into the void. All their power was consumed by the black light emanating from the many-eyed tail. Euros. Even Jiang Chengxuan's and immortal Fuguang's immortal lands trembled violently under the pressure, losing a significant amount of their primordial energy before they managed to stabilize once again. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the tribulation chi surged forward, rapidly expanding as if the core of the calamity wanted to show its dominance. It retook the territory that Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang had fought so hard to suppress. "How dare you?" Immortal Fuguang roared in fury, his eyes blazing with anger. Without hesitation, he summoned the horn-shaped immortal weapon once more, pouring all his strength into it. The weapon transformed into a fierce dragon with a sharp horn on its head, roaring as it charged toward the core of the tribulation. Euros. But the core of the tribulation was even more vicious. The giant tail twisted and whipped, wrapping around the black threads that had pierced the void. Like a massive net, it ensnared the horned dragon, entangling it in an unbreakable grip. Euros. The horned dragon struggled, but the tribulation chi continued to invade, seeping into its body through the black light that bound it. The corrosive power of the tribulation chi poured into its flesh, causing it to roar in pain and anger. Even the horn-shaped immortal weapon, in immortal Fuguang's hand, began to show signs of damage. Dark lines appeared on its surface, spreading like veins, causing its radiant light to dim. Gritting his teeth, immortal Fuguang continued pouring his energy into the weapon, resisting the overwhelming force of the tribulation core. But then, turning his gaze toward Jiang Chengxuan, he shouted, "Jiang, now! Strike now!" It became clear that immortal Fuguang had been intentionally sacrificing his weapon to create an opening. He had foreseen that the tribulation core wouldn't let such an opportunity pass, and was willing to risk a precious immortal weapon to buy Jiang Chengxuan a brief moment. Even Jiang Chengxuan hadn't anticipated this, but he immediately understood the opportunity before him. As soon as immortal Fuguang's words fell, Jiang Chengxuan instinctively prepared to unleash his most powerful technique. He knew that this was the chance to heavily wound the core of the tribulation chi, and only by seizing this moment could they hope to break through and gain the upper hand in this battle. Chapter 1340, Blood Battle Against the Tribulation, Peak Clash Part 1. Chapter 1340, Blood Battle Against the Tribulation, Peak Clash Part 1. Tribulation chi raged across the heavens and earth. A towering black pillar, swirling with a storm of tribulation chi, stood tall, devouring everything around it. For miles in every direction, not a single living thing survived. Everything had been refined into pure energy. Even the immortal essence had been entirely consumed, leaving the once magnificent Tianlong mountain range in complete ruin. Euros. its appearance now worse than the mortal realms below. At this moment, from within the terrifying storm of tribulation chi, the true form of the core of the tribulation emerged. It appeared as a massive tail, covered in hundreds of eyes. Each eye shot out beams of black light, piercing through the void. Despite immortal Fuguang's fierce attacks, the core twisted its tail, and the countless black beams intertwined to form an inescapable web, wrapping tightly around the dragon summoned by immortal Fuguang, continuously draining its power. However, in the midst of this, immortal Fuguang suddenly unleashed his full strength, using the hundred-eyed web to trap much of the tribulation core's power. The black fog enshrouded both the massive tail and the web, causing even the swirling storm of tribulation chi to shrink noticeably. This created the perfect opportunity. Primordial water and fire. Heaven cleansing flames. With a fierce shout, Jiang Chengxuan's eyes flashed with determination as he unleashed his ultimate power. In an instant, boundless waves of red and blue light erupted from his earth immortal blessed land. The primordial light, resembling the birth of a new sun, illuminated the world. Primordial fire blazed across the heavens, occupying half the sky, while primordial water surged like a vast ocean, flooding a large portion of the Tianlong mountain range. The entire battlefield was engulfed in these two opposing yet complementary forces, red and blue, as distinct as heaven and earth, creating an immensely mysterious scene. Suddenly, a brilliant ray of light flashed from the junction where the water and fire met, appearing directly in Jiang Chengxuan's hand. The immense power radiating from it revealed that this was no ordinary weapon, it was an earth immortal level treasure. Even immortal Fuguang was stunned by this sight. He himself did not possess such a powerful weapon. With the primordial water and fire sword in hand, Jiang Chengxuan immediately stabilized the chaotic battlefield. The residual immortal energy and scattered tribulation chi were instantly pacified by the overwhelming might of his treasure. Even the tribulation core sensed the danger, its massive tail thrashing violently, shaking the heavens as it tried to break free from immortal Fuguang's grasp. Seeing this, immortal Fuguang gritted his teeth and poured every ounce of his strength into holding the core down. His earth immortal blessed land trembled under the strain, as radiant immortal light scattered from his efforts. He channeled all the rage from his sex collapse into this moment. Despite the tribulation core's relentless struggle, pulling the storm of tribulation chi into distorted waves, it remained bound for the time being. In that instant, Jiang Chengxuan swung the primordial water and fire sword. Immediately, the primordial water and fire fused together, unleashing an unparalleled force. With the swing of his sword, the sky and earth twisted as the boundless power of primordial water and fire, combined with Jiang Chengxuan's immense mid-stage earth immortal strength and the vast energies of his blessed land, erupted in a single strike. The slash arrived in an instant. A golden line of light surged across the sky, traveling hundreds of miles in a blink, and slammed into the black storm of tribulation chi. Boom! The universe seemed to tremble as the wind and clouds halted for a moment. That single streak of golden light grew ever brighter, and the boundless power of primordial water and fire found its outlet, pouring into the strike without restraint, triggering a massive thunderous boom. Jiang Chengxuan didn't pause. He quickly spun the sword in his hand, unleashing multiple consecutive strikes. Golden lines of light slashed across the sky, severing everything in their path. In that moment, Jiang Chengxuan seemed to be harnessing the power of the entire world to confront the core of the tribulation. The effect was immediate. The once indomitable pillar of tribulation chi, which had seemed capable of swallowing everything, was now being cut apart. The massive black pillar, previously so unbreakable, was sliced into sections, each clean cut severing it further. The primordial water and fire sword was so powerful that it could even slice through intangible forces like wind and tribulation chi. Hugh! Immortal Fuguang finally breathed a sigh of relief as he retrieved his immortal weapon. However, the treasure had already been corroded by the tribulation chi, losing most of its brilliance and power. It was no longer fit to be called an immortal treasure. Still, immortal Fuguang had no regrets. Seeing Jiang Chengxuan unleash such terrifying power, he knew that his gamble had paid off. The opportunity he had fought to create had been seized by Jiang Chengxuan, leading to the decisive breakthrough in the battle. Just as the black storm of tribulation chi was dissipating, a furious roar suddenly erupted. The severed fragments of the tribulation storm scattered in all directions, creating violent tornadoes that crushed the surrounding mountains, sending gales of black wind howling across the battlefield. At that moment, the core of the tribulation finally revealed its true form. Its massive body fully emerged from the storm. Both Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang, who had just slightly relaxed, immediately tensed up again, their eyes filled with seriousness as they gripped their weapons and prepared for the next onslaught. The true form of the core of the tribulation was a giant serpent, its body crackling with red lightning. Chapter 1341, Blood Battle Against the Tribulation, Peak Clash Part 2. Chapter 1341, Blood Battle Against the Tribulation, Peak Clash Part 2. The tribulation chi continued to rage, forming a protective layer over the core like an impenetrable armor. However, its snake tail had been severed, diminishing some of its former majesty. This was a result of Jiang Chengxuan's earlier strike, which had cut through it. But the loss of the tail was merely a minor setback. What was truly terrifying about the core of the tribulation were the thousands of eyes embedded in its snake-like body, each eye gleaming like a gemstone, eerily surveying the surroundings. Even Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang, seasoned as they were, felt a chill down their spines upon seeing this monstrous entity for the first time. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Without giving them time to think, the core's hundreds of eyes glowed red as it entered a state of fury, launching a relentless assault. Immediately, tribulation chi surged throughout the battlefield, forming tornadoes that followed the core's massive serpent body. Together, they created a wall of devastation that moved toward Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang, like an army bearing down upon a besieged fortress. The overwhelming pressure felt like the sky itself was about to collapse. Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang responded quickly, unleashing their immortal energy, which surged into the sky and stirred the clouds. Jiang Chengxuan's primordial water and fire sword once again manifested its power, releasing waves of primordial fire and water that crashed into the storm of tribulation chi. Two immense forces collided, resulting in a cataclysmic impact. It was as if two giant celestial bodies had collided in the heavens, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. Countless celestial stars exploded, meteors fell from the sky, and the entire firmament was swallowed by dazzling celestial light. Spiderweb-like cracks spread from the point of impact, as though the sky itself was fracturing. This clash had reached the pinnacle of mid-stage Earth immortal power, and the aftershocks spread for thousands of miles, nearly causing the entire Tianlong mountain range to collapse. The once glorious palaces and towers of the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, built over centuries, were reduced to rubble, their golden roofs and massive stone structures crumbling into the dust. The vast wealth and resources accumulated by the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce over millennia were destroyed in an instant. This tragic sight was witnessed by countless cultivators observing from afar, each of them gasping in horror, their hearts heavy with sorrow. Even a behemoth like the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce couldn't withstand the catastrophe of the tribulation. How could mere mortal cultivators hope to protect themselves in the face of such overwhelming power? The clash between the two immortals and the tribulation had long surpassed their wildest imaginations. The sheer magnitude of the power involved was something they could never hope to attain. Yet in the face of the immortal realm's great tribulation, they too would have to fight with everything they had, desperately clinging to the hope of survival. The terror of this calamity was beyond words. On the battlefield, after Jiang Chengxuan unleashed his primordial water and fire sword, immortal Fuguang also summoned a new immortal treasure, activating its powers in an attempt to strike down the core of the tribulation. This weapon took the form of a long spear, its shape intricate and mysterious, resembling a long branch from a divine tree. When it was activated, ethereal leaves appeared, sharp enough to tear through the void with ease. Together, the two Earth Immortals Euros, wielding sword and spear Euros, charged into the heart of the tribulation storm, engaging in a brutal battle with the core of the tribulation. In the pitch-black, crumbling world around them, two radiant sources of immortal light shone brilliantly, their power shaking the heavens as they clashed with the forces of destruction. The core of the tribulation fought back with its own divine abilities, controlling the swirling tribulation chi and unleashing the hundreds of eyes on its body. From each eye shot beams of black light, effortlessly piercing through the void. Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Guang had to rely on their combat experience to dodge the deadly attacks while launching their own counteroffensives. The battle was perilous, with danger at every turn. Immortal Guang, in particular, was at a disadvantage. Weaker than Jiang Chengxuan, he struggled to avoid the onslaught of the tribulation qi. Several times, he narrowly avoided being struck by the black beams from the core's eyes. Fortunately, Jiang Chengxuan managed to intervene, using the power of the primordial water and fire sword to disrupt the core's attacks, diverting much of its power and allowing them to continue the fight. This battle was one of the most grueling Jiang Chengxuan had ever faced. The core of the tribulation, having accumulated power for millions of years, was extraordinarily strong. The unique properties of the tribulation qi gave it a suppressive effect on ordinary immortal energy, drastically depleting the energy reserves of their blessed lands. Thankfully, Jiang Chengxuan had absorbed numerous sources of primordial energy in the past, refining his earth immortal blessed land to a level where it constantly replenished his strength. This allowed him to maintain an even footing with the core of the tribulation, engaging in a fierce exchange of attacks. At a certain moment, Jiang Chengxuan invoked the laws of the 5 elements and reincarnation, manifesting layers of protective phenomena around himself. He then infused his primordial water and fire sword with the laws of life and death, releasing a devastating strike that tore through the heavens. His target was none other than the severed tail of the core. This strike, meticulously planned after a long and arduous battle, hit its mark. Even the core of the tribulation couldn't avoid it, and the blow landed squarely on the stump of its tail. In an instant, the raging power of primordial water and fire surged into the wound, forcing the accumulated energy of the tribulation qi out from the core's body. Tribulation qi billowed out, scattering across the sky in thick black clouds. The core of the tribulation let out a series of furious roars, its voice shaking the heavens with unimaginable pain. The qi it had accumulated over millions of years, devouring everything in its path, was incredibly precious. With this strike, Jiang Chengxuan had essentially destroyed tens of thousands of years' worth of cultivation, and the core was livid. Sensing its dwindling power, the core of the tribulation went berserk, unleashing a massive beam of light directly at Jiang Chengxuan. Seeing the attack coming, Jiang Chengxuan quickly summoned an immortal treasure to protect himself. An undying divine wheel materialized before him, combining with his earth immortal blessed land to form 2 layers of protective shields. Boom! A series of deafening thunderclaps echoed as Jiang Chengxuan was blasted backward, retreating for hundreds of miles before finally withstanding the beam's destructive force. When the dust settled, Jiang Chengxuan glanced at the undying divine wheel in his hand, noticing that it had dimmed, its once brilliant surface now showing signs of damage. His expression turned serious as he realized the immense power they were facing. However, beneath the surface, he felt a sense of triumph. Without a doubt, he had discovered the core of the tribulation's weakness, the point where he had severed its tail during the earlier stages of the battle. The core of the tribulation was a formless entity, a moving essence of destruction. Its severed tail couldn't regenerate. Strike the severed tail. Jiang Chengxuan quickly relayed his discovery to immortal Guang through a voice transmission. Understanding immediately, immortal Guang nodded in agreement. In perfect sync, the 2 immortals moved with lightning speed, flying through the air toward the core's severed tail. The battle intensified once more, with both sides launching their most desperate attacks. This brutal fight nearly obliterated the entire region. Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Guang fought tirelessly for what felt like countless days. In the end, they managed to suppress the core of the tribulation by relentlessly targeting its weak point. Amid the now ruined Tianlong mountain range, immortal Guang stood bloodied, his body marked by traces of tribulation qi. He had been deeply contaminated by the tribulation's corruption. Beside him, Jiang Chengxuan was equally exhausted. His earth immortal blessed land flickered weakly, drained from the extended battle. It would take him a long period of recovery to regain his full strength. Yet despite the heavy cost, their victory was worth it. Though the land lay in ruins, the air was once again still. The tribulation had been suppressed, and the threat had passed. The triple reincarnation tribulation truly is terrifying, Jiang Chengxuan muttered, still shaken by the experience. Without immortal Guang's assistance, and the power of the 9-dragon immortal array, not to mention the advantage of severing the tail before the core fully manifested, Jiang Chengxuan knew he wouldn't have been able to defeat the tribulation. At best, he would have been forced to flee in disgrace. But fortune had been on his side. The tribulation had erupted just as he remained in the Tianlong mountain range, and through a series of fortunate events, they had succeeded in subduing it. As he reflected on the battle, Jiang Chengxuan's gaze turned to the distant void. There, suspended in the chaotic energy, was the severed tail of the tribulation core, writhing as it slowly faded into nothingness. Depleted of its power, it was now sealed away, unable to pose any further threat. Chapter 1342, After the Tribulation, a Powerful Alliance, Part 1. Chapter 1342, After the Tribulation, a Powerful Alliance, Part 1. A tribulation that could have engulfed millions of lives was successfully suppressed by the combined efforts of Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang, preventing untold destruction. In a way, it felt as though fate itself had played a hand in their success. The Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, located in the heart of the fertile central region of the Xuaning immortal realm, was surrounded by countless other immortal sects and cities. If the triple reincarnation tribulation had been left unchecked, the consequences would have been unimaginable, likely causing one of the worst disasters since the rise of tribulation Qi. Yet despite their victory, immortal Fuguang couldn't bring himself to rejoice. Sai, my Tianlong Chamber of Commerce, with its millennia of accumulated wealth and influence, gone just like that. Sai, all of it reduced to nothing, he muttered, coughing weakly between words. Although they had overcome the tribulation, the destruction of the Tianlong immortal mountain and the chamber's entire foundation was irreparable. Not only had they lost a powerful base, but countless treasures and materials collected from various sects and factions had been consumed by the core of the tribulation, completely obliterated by its devouring power. The loss was crippling, nearly enough to ruin the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce entirely. As a commerce-based power, their strength lay in trade and exchange throughout the immortal realm. Now, with such immense losses, they would struggle to recover, and the repercussions could provoke backlash from other factions, whose interests were entangled with the chamber's resources. Although those factions would likely show leniency given the circumstances, these debts would still need to be repaid if the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce intended to maintain its credibility within the realm. Failing to do so would ruin its reputation and trust with the other immortal forces. This catastrophe could see the Tianlong Chamber fall from its status as a top-tier power in the immortal realm. Worse still, they were now left without a base of operations. The widespread tribulation outbreaks had already decimated many prized locations throughout the realm, leaving sects and cultivators scattered. Competition for the remaining havens had only increased the tension between factions, with displaced immortals eyeing any available land to rebuild their sects. As a result, conflicts and wars had erupted in many regions, driven by the need to secure vital lands for cultivation. These battles were the result of sheer necessity, as no sect could survive without a sacred site to cultivate and grow. Thus, the tribulation-driven calamities had not only brought destruction, but had also ignited power struggles across the immortal realm, leaving it in a state of unrest. The will of heaven is unpredictable, but Elder Fuguang, you must look after yourself first. As long as you survive, there will always be hope to rebuild, Jiang Chengxuan said as he approached, offering words of comfort. Hearing this, Fuguang's expression softened slightly, though the sadness in his eyes remained. Sai, you're right. There's nothing to be done now. Go ahead and claim the core of the tribulation. Best not to leave it unchecked and risk further disasters, he added. Jiang Chengxuan had played the most pivotal role in the battle, and it was customary in the immortal world that such spoils would go to him as a reward. Moreover, as a skilled alchemist, Jiang Chengxuan was the best person to handle the potentially dangerous core, which could otherwise bring calamity to anyone unqualified to manage its power. Very well then. I won't be modest. While the core of the tribulation is valuable, it carries significant risk, Jiang Chengxuan said with a nod, his expression turning serious as he flew toward the core's location, gathering his immortal energy. The black serpentine form of the core, still struggling within the seals that bound it, twisted violently as Jiang Chengxuan approached. With a wave of his hand, Jiang Chengxuan summoned a treasure chest forged from 5 elements immortal stone and sealed the core within it, securing it with powerful formations. The tribulation had finally been resolved. Without dwelling on the core for long, Jiang Chengxuan returned to immortal Fuguang, handing him a jade bottle as he said, "Here is a bottle of tribulation-dispelling pills I refined. It will help neutralize the effects of the tribulation qi. Elder, you fought bravely. Without your assistance, I could not have suppressed the tribulation. Please accept this as a token of my gratitude," Jiang Chengxuan added with a smile. Immortal Fuguang was taken aback by the gesture, both surprised by the powerful pills and touched by Jiang Chengxuan's generosity. In the cutthroat world of immortals, few would offer such help after a sect had fallen from grace. Yet here was Jiang Chengxuan, extending a hand of friendship despite the Tianlong Chamber's downfall. Elder Fuguang's spirits lifted as he gratefully accepted the bottle. "I'm deeply thankful, young friend. I owe you a great debt for your kindness. It's unfortunate that we dragged you into such a mess," he continued. "But rest assured, the medicinal herbs I promised will still be delivered to you in a few days." Jiang Chengxuan smiled warmly and waved off the concern. No need to worry, this was a minor matter. As he looked around at the devastated landscape of the once grand Tianlong Immortal Mountain and the dispirited Immortal Fuguang, an idea began to form in Jiang Chengxuan's mind. Now that the Tianlong Chamber has suffered such a calamity, what plans do you have for the future, Elder Fuguang? Chapter 1343, After the Tribulation, a Powerful Alliance, Part 2. Chapter 1343, After the Tribulation, a Powerful Alliance, Part 2. As Jiang Chengxuan asked the question, he observed Immortal Fuguang's expression closely. With a bitter look, Fuguang swallowed a tribulation-dispelling pill and began circulating his energy to heal his wounds. After a few moments, he sighed, surveying the ruined landscape of Tianlong Mountain and speaking with a tone filled with regret. "What can we do but take it one step at a time? After such a disaster, we'll need to find a new place to settle, and then perhaps begin restoring our business. Fortunately, we still have a few branch locations, so the Tianlong Chamber won't collapse entirely." The weight of his words made his face appear more aged and worn, devoid of the confident aura he once carried. The tribulation had not just ravaged the land, but had also shaken the resolve of the immortals deeply connected to the realm's rules. Though many were unaware, the upcoming calamities of the immortal domain were already influencing their minds, subtly altering their emotions and thoughts. This influence, much like the tribulation of inner demons, was a silent prelude to larger events yet to come. Jiang Chengxuan's eyes gleamed with sincerity as he spoke, testing the waters. "Given the circumstances, my scattered Immortals Alliance holds several treasured locations in the Western continent. They could easily accommodate a sect like Tianlong. What do you think, Elder?" This suggestion was the result of much thought on Jiang Chengxuan's part. Immortal Fuguang was visibly shaken by the offer and fell into deep contemplation. Jiang Chengxuan's words were clear as euros. He was proposing a formal alliance between the Tianlong Chamber of Commerce and the scattered Immortals Alliance. With the immortal realm in turmoil ahead of the Great Tribulation, forging alliances with powerful factions like the Tianlong Chamber could be incredibly beneficial for both sides. The recent destruction of Tianlong Mountain presented an opportunity for Jiang Chengxuan, and he seized the moment to extend this offer. The scattered Immortals Alliance had grown rapidly, and with its expansion came access to several treasured lands, many of which were yet to be fully utilized. By offering one of these locations to the Tianlong Chamber, Jiang Chengxuan hoped to secure a lasting alliance, one founded on shared interests and mutual benefit. Unlike other forces that had sought temporary aid from the alliance, Jiang Chengxuan desired a more solid and reliable ally, someone capable of standing by the alliance's side in the long term. The Tianlong Chamber, given its wealth and resources, fit that role perfectly. However, Jiang Chengxuan was not one to force the issue. He presented the idea and left the decision to Immortal Fuguang. He knew that while he trusted the Chamber's potential, the Chamber might not yet fully trust him. After all, moving into the Western continent meant entering the scattered Immortals Alliance's territory, and if things soured, the Chamber could be in a precarious position. Immortal Fuguang, with his experience and wisdom, understood the risks involved. The offer of an alliance was a double-edged sword, fraught with danger, but also filled with opportunity. He couldn't take such a decision lightly. The silence in the devastated landscape persisted for a long time before immortal Fuguang finally spoke with a heavy heart. "Sai, how can I refuse your generous offer, young friend?" he said at last. "With the great tribulation nearing, the turmoil of the immortal realm is evident. Forming an alliance with another strong force to weather this storm is a blessing. The Tianlong Chamber will rely on the scattered immortals' alliance from now on." After careful consideration, immortal Fuguang had made his decision. He had long recognized Jiang Chengxuan's immense potential. Much like when Jiang Chengxuan had proven his worth in the Five Elements Immortal Stone incident, his power had far exceeded expectations. And now, after this battle, immortal Fuguang was even more convinced of his strength. The second reason was Jiang Chengxuan's character. The scattered immortals' alliance had risen to prominence quickly, but had done so through fair and honorable means, without resorting to senseless bloodshed or domination of other sects. Immortal Fuguang had also heard that many sects had allied themselves with the scattered immortals' alliance recently, which gave him greater confidence in their integrity. Upon hearing immortal Fuguang's decision, Jiang Chengxuan laughed heartily and said, "It brings me great joy to join forces with the Tianlong Chamber. Together, we will surely forge a path through this tribulation. Help is hardly the word of euros, a powerful alliance is more like it." Jiang Chengxuan's humility only served to reassure immortal Fuguang further. With their partnership now solidified, the elder felt a great burden lift from his shoulders, his spirits rising. Finding a new place to call home had been the greatest challenge facing the chamber, and Jiang Chengxuan's offer had provided the solution. Feeling greatly relieved, immortal Fuguang's complexion brightened visibly. "There's no time to waste. Once you've made the necessary preparations, inform me, and I will personally escort your people to the Western continent," Jiang Chengxuan continued, eager to finalize the details. He swiftly took out a communication talisman, sending word to Qin Shenwu to make the necessary arrangements for the chamber's relocation. With that done, both Jiang Chengxuan and immortal Fuguang took to the skies, leaving the desolate Tianlong Mountain behind. Soon, in the ruins of the Tianlong Mountain range, hundreds of surviving members of the Tianlong Chamber began to gather, drawn to the call of immortal Fuguang. From all directions, cultivators arrived, some carrying treasure carts, others supporting injured companions. They gathered in solemn ranks before their leaders. Seeing that immortal Fuguang had survived brought them some relief, but when their eyes fell upon the destroyed mountain, sadness overtook them. Tears brimmed in many eyes. "Elder, the mountain, it's gone. What are we going to do? Our Tianlong Chamber, how could we suffer such a disaster? The heavens are truly blind. Curse the tribulation. Curse the heavens for destroying our sacred home." Some wept while others cursed in anguish. Many knelt before immortal Fuguang, their hearts filled with sorrow. The disciples of the Tianlong Chamber had once stood beneath the protective shade of a mighty tree. Mere days ago, they felt secure in their ability to weather the immortal realm's tribulations. But now, in the blink of an eye, that tree had been felled, leaving them homeless and adrift. They knew well the state of the immortal realm. As merchants and traders, they were keenly aware of the turmoil that had swept through the land, and they understood the dire situation their sect now faced. Many feared that, in the future, the chamber would be forced to send its members far and wide to seek refuge, or worse, that they would be cast out to survive on their own. Amidst their sorrow and anger, immortal Fuguang sighed once more but quickly composed himself. With newfound resolve, he addressed the assembled disciples. "The heavens may be unpredictable, but we have been blessed by fate. Though our sect has suffered, we are fortunate to have received help in our time of need. Do not despair. This is Jiang Chengxuan, elder of the Scattered Immortals Alliance, a man whose name you may know. It was with his aid that we suppressed the tribulation and preserved what remains of our sect." Hearing this, many of the Tianlong Chamber's elders and disciples looked up, exchanging knowing glances. They quickly realized the gravity of the situation. At once, the elders led the chamber's members in a collective bow toward Jiang Chengxuan, their voices united. "Thank you, Honorable Elder, for your aid in saving the Tianlong Chamber. Thank you, Honorable Elder, for your aid in saving the Tianlong Chamber." Chapter 1344, Shocking the Immortal Realm, Qian Immortal Mountain, Part 1. Chapter 1344, Shocking the Immortal Realm, Qian Immortal Mountain, Part 1. Before the thousands of disciples of the Tianlong Chamber, Jiang Chengxuan stood tall, bearing their reverent gazes. The skies above echoed with their cheers and shouts, shaking the heavens. Jiang Chengxuan's name had long been known across the Xunaming immortal realm. These disciples of the Tianlong Chamber, traveling far and wide across the realm, knew well of Jiang Chengxuan's exploits. To them, he was a true prodigy, his power terrifying, standing at the peak of the immortal realm despite having cultivated for a relatively short time. His rise to fame began with his breakthrough to the Earth Immortal stage, when he had defeated Earth Immortal challengers seeking to block his path. He had then hosted lectures, enlightening countless cultivators, spreading his fame even further. During the past few years, Jiang Chengxuan had suppressed numerous tribulations, performing the work of 3 people with unmatched efficiency and strength. Everywhere he went, he left behind a legacy of greatness, further solidifying his renown. And this was before the news spread of Jiang Chengxuan reaching the mid-stage Earth Immortal, and the rise of 2 more Earth Immortals within the scattered Immortals Alliance. Countless factions had sent precious gifts, seeking his protection, elevating the Alliance's status across the entire realm. In the face of the Great Tribulation, we cultivators of the immortal realm must support one another to survive. I have long had ties with the Tianlong Chamber, and offering my assistance is only natural. Follow Elder Fuguang to the Western continent, and I will ensure that you are all settled. There is no need for further concern. Jiang Chengxuan spoke with a calm and warm demeanor, his smile reassuring. His words immediately boosted the morale of the Tianlong Chamber's disciples, who felt as though they were basking in a spring breeze. The disaster that had befallen the Tianlong Chamber had left their hearts desolate. Jiang Chengxuan's timely aid felt like a beacon of hope in their darkest hour, moving them deeply. Rest and recuperate well. We will set off when you are ready. With Jiang Chengxuan's instruction, the atmosphere became lively. The disciples and elders of the Tianlong Chamber, under the direction of Elder Fuguang, began organizing the logistics of their departure. This included inventorying the treasures and materials they had managed to save, and searching through the ruins of Tianlong Mountain to salvage any remaining valuables. Jiang Chengxuan stood by patiently, without any sign of urgency. Days passed one by one, until more than 10 days later, the Tianlong Chamber's disciples were finally ready. They had recovered some lost items, and even managed to reunite with a few scattered disciples. Among the retrieved items was the batch of rare immortal medicines that Jiang Chengxuan had been waiting for, marking the completion of their preparations. At this moment, the skies above were filled with a grand procession. Brilliant treasure carriages lined up in formation, exuding a dazzling radiance and surrounded by layers of misty clouds, creating an awe-inspiring sight. Despite the desolation that hung over the land, recently ravaged by a tribulation, the presence of the Tianlong Chamber's majestic procession added a solemn grandeur to the scene. Standing at the forefront of the tens of thousands of disciples, Jiang Chengxuan and Elder Fuguang gazed into the distance. With a nod from Jiang Chengxuan, they transformed into beams of immortal light and began their journey toward the western continent of the Xunaming immortal realm. Meanwhile, word of this development had already reached the scattered Immortals Alliance. Under the leadership of Shen Ruyan and Qin Shenwu, a meeting was hastily convened, and all necessary preparations were made without incident. The Alliance's senior elders were left in a state of utter shock when they learned of the news. None of them had expected such an incredible turn of events. The Tianlong Chamber, a household name throughout the Xunaming immortal realm, had been an unattainable presence for the once humble scattered Immortals Alliance. In the past, the Alliance didn't even qualify to attend the Chamber's gatherings. The difference in their status had been as vast as heaven and earth. Yet now the Tianlong Chamber, its sect destroyed by a tribulation, was seeking refuge with them. The reversal of fortunes was mind-boggling, leaving the elders feeling as though they were living in a dream. It was a stark reminder of the unpredictability of life, a testament to how drastically circumstances could change. But after their initial shock, the Alliance's members were quick to express their support. The scattered Immortals Alliance owed its rise entirely to Jiang Chengxuan, and his decisions were law within the sect. Furthermore, his closest confidants Euros, Qin Shenwu, Shen Ruyan, Feng Zhu, Elder Su, and Li Xianxia Euros were firmly in control of the Alliance's operations. The decision to welcome the Tianlong Chamber into their territory and form a union between the two factions was swiftly communicated to the entire alliance. This move required meticulous planning. They needed to allocate an appropriate land for the Chamber of Euros, one that was distant enough from the Alliance's core territories while still being rich in resources. Additionally, they had to inform the allied sects within the scattered Immortals Alliance so that everyone could be prepared for the Chamber's arrival and ensure smooth interactions. The news spread like wildfire throughout the Western continent, causing a great stir. The disciples of the scattered Immortals Alliance were filled with a mix of astonishment and pride. The alliance had grown so much that even a powerhouse like the Tianlong Chamber sought their help in times of need. Those sects that had earlier gone to great lengths to forge alliances with the scattered Immortals Alliance were equally stunned, but their shock quickly gave way to excitement. They had allied themselves with the right force. Chapter 1345, Shocking the Immortal Realm, Qian Immortal Mountain, Part 2. Chapter 1345, Shocking the Immortal Realm, Qian Immortal Mountain, Part 2. Those who had previously aligned themselves with Jiang Chengxuan felt their decision was absolutely right. In the face of tribulation, all were in the same boat. And now, with the boat growing bigger and stronger, they felt even more secure and delighted. Thus, without hesitation, many sects and factions began preparing their gifts, awaiting Jiang Chengxuan's return to complete their diplomatic tasks. Unaware of the preparations being made thousands of miles away, Jiang Chengxuan pressed onward, leading the massive Tianlong Chamber procession through the vast skies, headed toward the scattered Immortals Alliance's borders. The location chosen to settle the Tianlong Chamber members had been decided through a discussion between him and Elder Fuguang. Their new home would be in the Qian Mountain Range, a treasured land located on the border between the Western continent and the Central continent. Although the mountain range was within the Western continent, its proximity to the Central continent made it an ideal place for the Tianlong Chamber to conduct their business. Moreover, it was far enough from the core region of the scattered Immortals Alliance, allowing both parties to maintain a comfortable distance. It was, in every way, a perfect choice. As they journeyed, this immense group of immortals naturally attracted attention from various factions. With two Earth Immortals leading the way, accompanied by a procession of powerful immortals, it was a display of the accumulated strength of a high-level faction of Euros, a terrifying sight in these troubled times. Especially now, when the presence of tribulation clouds hung ominously over the realm, tensions were high and secret conflicts simmered beneath the surface. The sight of Jiang Chengxuan's contingent only added to the fear, for with their combined might, they could easily wipe out half the sects in the region, a prospect more terrifying than the tribulations themselves. Honored immortals, may I inquire about your purpose in coming to this region? Some braver sects sent emissaries to politely inquire, while others, more cautious, activated their protective formations, fearing they might attract unwanted disaster. There was no reason to conceal their purpose, and Jiang Chengxuan's group openly explained their mission. The Tianlong Chamber's connections ran deep, and trying to keep their movements secret was nearly impossible. Rather than hiding, it was better to be forthright. Thus, the news of the destruction of the Tianlong Chamber's home, Jiang Chengxuan's intervention, and the relocation of the chamber to the Western continent quickly spread like wildfire throughout the Xuanming Immortal Realm. The names Tianlong Chamber, Scattered Immortals Alliance, and Jiang Chengxuan echoed through the realm, each one carrying the weight to shift the balance of power. Now, with these names intertwined, the news shook every corner of the immortal realm. Within a short time, the information reached the ears of every major faction. Sect masters across the realm gasped in disbelief, silently contemplating the implications. Sitting in their positions of power, they had much to consider. The fall of such a colossal entity, as the Tianlong Chamber, was bound to have far-reaching consequences. For many, the chamber had been an essential trade partner, and the destruction of its headquarters was not something they could simply ignore. What does this sudden alliance between the Scattered Immortals Alliance and the Tianlong Chamber mean? Could there be an ulterior motive? Who can rest peacefully while another thrives so close by? Is the Scattered Immortals Alliance really so altruistic as to offer their treasured land? Ridiculous. Something doesn't feel right. Dispatch scouts immediately. Track their every move. Soon, many sects began reacting, suspicious of Jiang Chengxuan's and Elder Fuguang's motives, some sending spies to track the procession and gather more information. Cynicism ruled their thoughts, as trust was the rarest commodity on the immortal path. Yet their concerns weren't entirely baseless. The complexity of Jiang Chengxuan's plans extended far beyond their understanding. His ambitions were on a grander scale, not bound by mere short-term gains or losses. Thus, even as these sects monitored them, Jiang Chengxuan and his group found themselves under growing scrutiny. Numerous factions dispatched agents to follow them discreetly, hoping to uncover hidden motives. However, their covert attempts were easily detected by Jiang Chengxuan and Elder Fuguang. Jiang Chengxuan, confident in his upright actions, chose to ignore the spies, signaling his transparency. His decision to personally lead the Tianlong chamber to the western continent was simply due to the vast number of people, making teleportation impractical. Even if they had used teleportation arrays, such a massive movement would still have caused a commotion. As reports trickled back to the various sects, the truth of the situation became clear. The Tianlong chamber had indeed been devastated by a tribulation, and the destruction of the Tianlong mountain range was undeniable. Furthermore, the scattered Immortals Alliance's willingness to offer aid and shelter proved to be genuine, leaving many factions perplexed and pensive. Setting aside their suspicions, many sects began to realize that the balance of power within the immortal realm was shifting once more. The union of the Tianlong Chamber and the scattered Immortals Alliance was a reality, a formidable alliance that would undoubtedly reshape the future. Qian Mountain Range. This was a majestic and sprawling treasure land situated at the border of the western and central continents, composed of dozens of towering peaks that stretched across a vast expanse. The mountain range was renowned for its abundance of cultivation resources. The southern peaks were bathed in red clouds, rich with fire elemental spiritual essences. To the west, golden clouds enveloped the mountains, where countless metal elemental treasures were hidden. In the north and east, the peaks were adorned with earth and wood elemental resources, shrouded in yellow and green clouds, respectively. This unique combination of elements gave the mountain range its name, Qian, meaning strange clouds. Once, this land belonged to a mid-tier sect known as the Qian sect. However, in the past few thousand years, the sect clashed with the scattered Immortals Alliance during the latter's rapid expansion. The conflict ended swiftly, with the Qian sect's defeat and the mountain range falling into the hands of the Alliance. Since then, the Qian mountain range had remained relatively untouched, merely guarded by a small force to prevent trespassers. But today, the mountain was graced by the presence of several important figures. Amidst the colorful clouds, a group of immortals stood, draped in regal robes, their bodies emanating immortal light as they gazed into the distance. Among them, many appeared both respectful and anxious, their faces tinged with excitement and anticipation. At the forefront stood a figure of unparalleled grace and beauty, as radiant and distant as the moon in the sky. Her noble bearing commanded reverence, and her presence alone made it difficult for others to meet her gaze. There was no need to elaborate. This was clearly Shen Ruyan, who stood with a soft smile and a glint of excitement in her eyes. Today was the day they had been waiting for, the day Jiang Chengxuan would return with the Tianlong Chamber's survivors. The senior elders of the scattered Immortals Alliance and leaders from allied sects had long since made their preparations, ready to welcome their new allies. As tension filled the air, their anticipation finally bore fruit. In the distant sky, a radiant beam of light approached, carrying an overwhelming aura. Behind it, waves of colorful clouds rippled, and a vast shadow followed closely behind. Within this vast group were many immortals, yet none could outshine the figure leading the procession, whose presence alone seemed to swallow all brilliance. Everyone, thank you for waiting. We have arrived. Chapter 1346, System Task Allied Immortal Sects, Part 1. Chapter 1346, System Task Allied Immortal Sects, Part 1. On the outskirts of Qian Immortal Mountain, amidst the radiant clouds, Jiang Chengxuan stepped forward, immediately drawing everyone's attention. Behind him was the massive retinue of the Tianlong Chamber, a grand and orderly procession, as if an army of celestial soldiers had descended. Welcome back, Elder Jiang. Welcome back, Elder Jiang. Welcome back, Elder Jiang. The elders of the scattered Immortals Alliance and the leaders of the allied sects wasted no time, bowing and respectfully greeting Jiang Chengxuan in unison. The vast mountain range echoed with their unified voices, making the scene even more impressive. Jiang Chengxuan, leading his group, entered the mountain with his followers trailing behind him like a dark wave, quickly filling the vast space. beloved husband. At that moment, Shen Ruyan, beaming with joy, was the first to greet Jiang Chengxuan. Her colorful robes fluttered in the breeze as she gracefully descended beside him like a rainbow. My wife, you've worked hard. Jiang Chengxuan, taking her hand gently, responded in a soft voice. The two exchanged a knowing smile, a silent understanding passing between them without the need for words. Everyone, thank you for your hard work. Jiang Chengxuan then addressed the crowd with a light smile as he stood beside Shen Ruyan. The immortals quickly gathered before him, bowing respectfully. It was no trouble at all. With tribulation looming, helping an ally is something we all wish to do, they replied, though their curious gazes were drawn to the group behind Jiang Chengxuan. There stood Fuguang Immortal and the elders of the Tianlong Chamber, watching quietly. Both sides were silently sizing each other up, eager to learn more about their new allies. For the Tianlong Chamber members, the grand reception from the scattered Immortals Alliance was reassuring. It was clear that Jiang Chengxuan valued the alliance highly, as he had gathered the highest-ranking members of the alliance to make their introductions. This formal welcome would undoubtedly play a crucial role in the future development of the Tianlong Chamber in the Western continent. Just then, Jiang Chengxuan suddenly froze, momentarily startled by something unexpected in his mind. A familiar voice resonated in his head. Ding! The system has issued a task. Complete the mission of securing an alliance and settling the Tianlong Chamber's forces. The cold, indifferent tone unmistakably belonged to the system's task notification. Although Jiang Chengxuan's expression remained unchanged, inwardly he was taken aback. He hadn't expected the system to assign a mission related to forming alliances and developing forces, rather than one focused on cultivation. It seemed the system had once again foreseen something, subtly guiding Jiang Chengxuan with this mission. To weather the coming tribulation and seize opportunities, Jiang Chengxuan knew he would need sufficient strength of euros, not only in terms of personal cultivation, but also in the form of allies, resources, and treasures. With the great calamity approaching, relying solely on the title of Earth Immortal wouldn't be enough to influence the larger events. In such a scenario, having powerful subordinates and allies would be crucial. Thus, after contemplating for a moment, Jiang Chengxuan quickly understood the significance of this task and elevated the importance of the Tianlong Chamber's settlement in his plans. Everyone, this is the renowned Fuguang Immortal of the Tianlong Chamber. I'm sure many of you have already heard of him. Jiang Chengxuan gestured towards Fuguang Immortal, introducing him to the crowd. Greetings, Fuguang Immortal. Greetings, Fuguang Immortal. Greetings, Fuguang Immortal. The elders of the scattered Immortals Alliance, understanding the situation, quickly expressed their respect for Fuguang Immortal. After all, an Earth Immortal was a ruler in their own right within the immortal realm, and showing respect to such a figure was only natural, especially since he was now their ally. Haha, there's no need for such formalities. I'm just an old man of the immortal realm, Fuguang Immortal humbly responded, though inwardly he was quite pleased. From every angle, it was clear that Jiang Chengxuan's promises were genuine. The Qian Immortal Mountain, though not quite as prestigious as the Tianlong Mountain, was still a rare treasure in this part of the immortal realm. The respectful reception from the alliance's high-ranking members demonstrated their sincerity in the alliance, which reassured Fuguang Immortal that he had made the right decision. It is an honor to have you here, Fuguang Immortal. From now on, the Tianlong Chamber and the Scattered Immortals Alliance will share the benefits and face the challenges of the Western continent together, said Qin Shenwu, Jiang Chengxuan's master, as he stepped forward with a smile. Fuguang Immortal chuckled, giving Qin Shenwu an appraising look. Shen Ruyan took the opportunity to introduce Qin Shenwu, explaining his significance within the alliance. It didn't take long for Fuguang Immortal to understand that Qin Shenwu was one of Jiang Chengxuan's most trusted confidants. With this understanding, Fuguang Immortal responded with a friendly demeanor, striking up a conversation. Haha. Let's save the lengthy discussions for later. We've prepared a grand feast, but first, let's help settle the precious items brought by the Tianlong Chamber, Qin Shenwu suggested with a laugh. Without further delay, the exhausted members of the Tianlong Chamber were formally welcomed into Qian Immortal Mountain. Within the expansive and magnificent mountain range, the grand halls that once belonged to the mountain's previous inhabitants had long since been cleaned and prepared for the chamber's treasures and other belongings. Even numerous new caves had been opened, ready for the chamber's members to settle into. Chapter 1347, System Task Allied Immortal Sex Part 2. Chapter 1347, System Task Allied Immortal Sex Part 2. The task of hosting a banquet and arranging everything for the Tianlong Chamber's welcome was a massive undertaking. It took considerable time to organize everything properly before the preparations were finally deemed complete, and only then did the banquet arranged by Shen Ruyan and the others officially begin. That day, the towering Qian Immortal Mountain was decorated in festive red, and the air was filled with excitement and the clamor of people. Any sect or cultivator from the Western continent with the desire to participate could come freely to attend the grand banquet celebrating the Tianlong Chamber's arrival. This grand feast, which was a truly massive affair, lasted for a full half-month. Initially, the purpose was for Jiang Chengxuan and the members of the Scattered Immortals Alliance to become familiar with the members of the Tianlong Chamber and build relationships. Later, the event opened up to invite sects from all over the immortal realm, witnessing this strong alliance firsthand. Countless forces across the immortal realm sent representatives to investigate, driven by curiosity, suspicion, or uncertainty. Yet when they arrived and saw the grand scale of the banquet, they understood that Jiang Chengxuan's offer of alliance was genuine. During the banquet, Jiang Chengxuan formally announced that the Qian Immortal Mountain would be lent indefinitely to the Tianlong Chamber, allowing them to recover fully until they decided to leave on their own terms. Additionally, during this time, the two forces would become genuine allies, sharing both fortune and adversity. Fuguang Immortal naturally expressed his gratitude and sincere thanks to Jiang Chengxuan before all the gathered guests, officially accepting the alliance proposal. Thus, this monumental event that shook the immortal realm was finally settled, and the news spread rapidly, causing further tremors among the various factions. Time passed quickly as grand halls and palaces were constructed across the Qian Immortal Mountain. Numerous powerful formations and protection arrays were established to shield the area, and a vast number of teleportation formations were gradually put into place. It became clear that the Tianlong Chamber had firmly settled within the Qian Immortal Mountain, bringing all their precious resources and artifacts, signaling a long-term commitment rather than a temporary residence. Not only did Jiang Chengxuan express no opposition to these developments, but he actively supported the Tianlong Chamber in establishing themselves. He helped construct various facilities, modifying many of the immortal-grade formations himself. The teleportation arrays were created using his mastery of space law, allowing the chamber to reestablish trading and communication links at an incredible pace. Even the Scattered Immortals Alliance played a significant role, sending disciples to assist in construction and even temporarily loaning medicinal herbs to help the Tianlong Chamber resolve urgent issues. As a result, the situation quickly stabilized, and rebuilding efforts began in earnest. The damage caused by the destruction of the Tianlong Mountain was gradually repaired, with the Qian Immortal Mountain becoming the new foundation for growth. In no time, the Tianlong Chamber began to recover and grow at an astonishing speed. During this period, the relationship between the Tianlong Chamber and the Scattered Immortals Alliance deepened. Their disciples frequently interacted, exchanging knowledge, and the elders of both sides grew increasingly familiar with one another. Most notably, Jiang Chengxuan's reputation within the Tianlong Chamber skyrocketed. His mastery of numerous disciplines, including alchemy, formation creation, and other Taoist arts, left the experienced elders of the chamber in awe, proving his formidable prowess. These developments further validated the success of the alliance, and it became clear that this union was mutually beneficial. The Tianlong Chamber had found a safe haven to regain their strength and rebuild, while the Scattered Immortals Alliance gained an influential ally that bolstered their own standing amid turbulent times. Jiang Chengxuan's calculated risk had paid off, benefiting both parties. System Notification helped Tianlong Chamber establish an immortal formation. Plus 10 alliance points. System Notification helped Tianlong Chamber build teleportation arrays. Plus 10 alliance points. System Notification explored the Qian Immortal Mountain with the Tianlong Chamber. Plus 10 alliance points. Jiang Chengxuan, however, paid little attention to these notifications. He was simply focused on fulfilling the system's task and ensuring the successful establishment of the Tianlong Chamber within the Qian Immortal Mountain. Each task he completed triggered a system notification, bringing him closer to his goal. After several years, as the relationship between the Tianlong Chamber and the Scattered Immortals Alliance grew even stronger, the final system notification finally sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations, host, for completing the task. Unite the immortal sects. Reward: heaven-cleaving tribulation weapon euros, an immortal treasure capable of harnessing and controlling tribulation energy with devastating offensive power. Yang Chengxuan was overjoyed and astonished by the system's reward. He had never expected such a high-level treasure as a reward for this unique task. Initially, he had anticipated receiving something related to primordial energy, but the term tribulation weapon was a complete surprise. A tribulation weapon, Jiang Chengxuan murmured, recalling his past experiences. During his study of Yuanhen Immortal's old wounds, he had glimpsed a scene where the immortal had been injured by a weapon infused with tribulation energy. Could it have been a tribulation weapon? Drawing from his extensive knowledge, Jiang Chengxuan knew that tribulation weapons were incredibly rare, forged from the purest tribulation energy itself. Such weapons were considered ancient relics, as the techniques to create them had long been lost to time. Even during Yuanhen Immortal's era, the weapon that had injured him was likely an incomplete artifact discovered in some ancient ruin. True tribulation weapons were capable of inflicting catastrophic damage, able to match the power of divine or primordial forces. The ability to harness tribulation energy, one of the most fundamental and destructive forces in existence, made these weapons immensely powerful. Tribulation weapons are as terrifying as they are rare, Jiang Chengxuan thought. Such power could easily match the might of an earth immortal treasure. Moments later, suppressing his excitement, Jiang Chengxuan opened a spatial gate and returned to his personal chamber. There he summoned the system once more, and in a flash of dark light, the tribulation weapon appeared before him. As the weapon materialized, waves of profound tribulation energy filled the room, but Jiang Chengxuan noticed that the energy lacked its usual destructive instinct. Instead of devouring everything around it, the tribulation energy merely hovered like a mist, swirling protectively around the weapon. Pushing aside the mist, Jiang Chengxuan finally saw the weapon's true form. It was a slender, long-bladed sword with a hilt seemingly forged from black celestial ore, faintly crackling with red lightning. The blade itself, made of condensed gray mist, gleamed with a cold, sharp edge. Incredible, Jiang Chengxuan exclaimed. The weapon's aura was subtle yet powerful, its energy restrained but its potential immense. He knew that the weapon's true strength would only be revealed when it was infused with pure tribulation energy, transforming into a devastating tool of destruction. Such a weapon was not merely a tool, but a weapon of chaos for times of great turmoil. Out of curiosity, Jiang Chengxuan summoned the tribulation essence he had previously acquired, which manifested in the form of a serpentine energy. To his surprise, as soon as the tribulation essence appeared, it recoiled in fear, seemingly intimidated by the weapon. Fascinating, Jiang Chengxuan thought. Even the tribulation essence, which had previously shown no fear, now seemed to tremble before this weapon. Intrigued, Jiang Chengxuan decided to test the weapon's capabilities. He directed a small amount of tribulation energy into the tribulation weapon. Rumble! In an instant, the weapon erupted with a terrifying force, unleashing a storm of tribulation energy. Black winds howled, and the weapon seemed to swell in power, radiating a menacing glow. For a moment, Jiang Chengxuan felt as if he had stepped into the heart of a tribulation itself. Chapter 1348, Immortal Realm Turmoil, The Beginning of the Great War, Part 1. Chapter 1348, Immortal Realm Turmoil, The Beginning of the Great War, Part 1. The power of the tribulation weapon was fully unleashed after it absorbed the tribulation energy, and even Jiang Chengxuan couldn't help but feel a twinge of awe and shock. This weapon, infused with the essence of the tribulation laws, was a masterpiece of destruction, particularly adept at combat and attacks. In the realm of immortal treasures, it was an unparalleled creation. As the tribulation energy erupted from the weapon, shaking the immortal mountain where Jiang Chengxuan's cave was located, he quickly suppressed its force. Gazing at the long blade in his hand, Jiang Chengxuan felt that it had been worth every effort. Compared to the value of this tribulation weapon, what he had sacrificed for the Tianlong Chamber paled in comparison. With this powerful trump card, Jiang Chengxuan now had an even greater assurance of surviving the impending tribulation. This was far more valuable than mere cultivation resources. In the current, increasingly chaotic immortal realm, resources that couldn't be quickly converted into power would eventually become someone else's prize. Reflecting on this, Jiang Chengxuan's expression grew serious. He knew that in the face of a tribulation, no amount of preparation would ever feel like enough. Now was certainly not the time to relax. Hua euros. Jiang Chengxuan took a deep breath, sorting through the preparations he had made so far. In terms of manpower and influence, the Scattered Immortals Alliance had significantly expanded, with several allied sects joining them. The number of immortal-level cultivators had increased several times over. Not to mention the addition of two Earth Immortal powerhouses, Yuanhen Immortal and Fuguang Immortal. Their combined forces now ranked among the top-tier powers of the immortal realm. As for resources and treasures, the Scattered Immortals Alliance had accumulated a vast amount of wealth from their previous campaigns. With the inclusion of the Tianlong Chamber, resource concerns were no longer an issue. Jiang Chengxuan himself possessed two supreme treasures, the primordial water-fire sword and the tribulation weapon. Against any Earth Immortal, he was confident in his ability to hold his own. With this strength, surviving the tribulation shouldn't be a problem. Jiang Chengxuan muttered to himself, his eyes gleaming. Survival, however, was no longer his primary concern. If he sought to gain greater opportunities and fortunes from the tribulation, there was still a gap to be filled. Moreover, Jiang Chengxuan could sense, in some inexplicable way, that the heavenly tribulation was a means for the will of the immortal realm to reset the balance of fate. The positions of Earth Immortals, for Instancia Euros, these pinnacle figuressa Euros, could only break through their limits during a tribulation. Because of this, Jiang Chengxuan had a hidden plan, one tied to Shen Ruyan's path to becoming an Earth Immortal. In ordinary times, fate and destiny were fixed and difficult to alter, but in the midst of a great tribulation, anomalies were more likely to occur. If Shen Ruyan wished to break through to the Earth Immortal realm like he had, the tribulation might hold the key to her opportunity. Even if it was only for this reason, Jiang Chengxuan knew he had to make even more preparations. Without the right fortune or opportunities, no matter how close Shen Ruyan came to reaching the Earth Immortal realm, she would be unable to ascend. Jiang Chengxuan absolutely couldn't allow such a situation to occur. Thus, I must refine more tribulation-transcending elixirs. However, I also need to reserve some primordial essence in case the tribulation weapon requires it. Fortunately, I've already gathered plenty of essence during my recent endeavors, which is a relief. With a clear plan in mind, Jiang Chengxuan wasted no time. He took a deep breath, and his body radiated with brilliant light as he summoned the towering mountain and river furnace. The recipe for the true tribulation elixir flashed through his mind as streams of immortal light gathered around him, and a multitude of rare medicinal ingredients shot out, like a meteor shower. The variety and abundance of these ingredients were staggering. In an instant, the cave was filled with herbs, almost transforming into a medicine garden that had suddenly sprung into existence. The potent fragrance of the medicinal herbs hung heavily in the air, intoxicating anyone nearby. Boom! Jiang Chengxuan's expression turned solemn as he flicked his fingers, summoning a blazing tribulation flame that ignited everything around it. The fiery glow, reflecting the mountains and rivers of the immortal realm, created a mystical scene. Combined with the sight of numerous herbs suspended in the air, it resembled a breathtaking celestial paradise. But Jiang Chengxuan had no time to admire the spectacle. With a quick incantation, he unleashed his immense immortal power without hesitation, pushing the flame to its extreme as it began refining the herbs. At his current level of alchemical expertise, refining 100 different herbs simultaneously posed no challenge. The flames danced wildly, enveloping the herbs and filling the air with an even more intense medicinal fragrance. Lost in the art of alchemy, Jiang Chengxuan became deeply engrossed, forgetting about the passage of time. Meanwhile, as the commotion caused by the alliance between the Tianlong Chamber and the Scattered Immortals Alliance gradually subsided, a strange calm fell over the immortal realm. It was the ominous quiet before the storm, as various factions across the realm silently made their own preparations, using every available means to fortify their sects and gather as many resources and allies as possible for the upcoming Great Immortal Tribulation. Each faction, large or small, knew that the storm was about to break, and they could not afford to be caught unprepared. Chapter 1349, Immortal Realm Turmoil, the Beginning of the Great War, Part 2. Chapter 1349, Immortal Realm Turmoil, the Beginning of the Great War, Part 2. Time flowed relentlessly amidst these turbulent undercurrents. Even when calamities suddenly erupted in certain parts of the immortal realm, they rarely drew attention from the major forces, as many had become numb to such occurrences. However, as the days of relative calm stretched on, signs of the approaching great disaster became clearer, with scattered tribulations increasingly erupting in various locations. Even within the territory of the loose cultivator alliance, tribulation energy finally manifested, bringing disaster in its wake. Fortunately, Jiang Chengxuan was still stationed within the loose cultivator alliance at the time. The moment the tribulation erupted, he sensed it immediately and swiftly rushed to the affected area. With a display of overwhelming power, he suppressed the tribulation energy at lightning speed, preventing further damage. However, this tribulation served as a reminder to everyone. Now, with calamities erupting across nearly every corner of the immortal realm, the true arrival of the great disaster seemed closer than ever. In response, the loose cultivator alliance and its allied forces promptly convened meetings, strengthening their defenses and strategies against the growing calamities. Senior Jiang is currently in seclusion, and Elder Yuanhen has yet to return. You must all remain vigilant and take nothing lightly. Within the council hall, Shen Ruyan's voice was cold as she reminded the gathered members. Upon hearing her, everyone nodded in agreement, not daring to object. When Jiang Chengxuan was in seclusion, Shen Ruyan was entrusted with managing the sect's affairs. Over time, her reputation within the loose cultivator alliance had steadily risen, earning her deep respect. First, she was one of the earliest elders of the loose cultivator alliance and had deep seniority. Second, after refining the heavenly tribulation lightning, Shen Ruyan's strength was second only to the celestial lords, making her a core figure in the sect. Third, with Jiang Chengxuan standing behind her, that alone was enough to quell any dissent. Elder Shen, I have something to report. Breaking the silence, one elder spoke up, addressing Shen Ruyan. Shen Ruyan looked up, her gaze falling on the elder responsible for intelligence gathering. She nodded slightly and said, Elder La Quarter, what is it? Please speak. The attention of the entire council hall shifted toward Elder La Quarter, waiting for him to continue. Elder La Quarter expression grew more serious as he began to speak in a deep voice. Recently, we've received some noteworthy news from the central continent. According to our sources, several forces in the central continent have, for reasons that remain unclear, started engaging in warfare. The conflict has escalated, and now the flames of war are spreading wider by the day. Several true immortal factions have already been drawn into the conflict. This statement immediately caused the atmosphere in the council hall to grow heavier. War had finally broken out in the immortal realm, and multiple true immortal factions had already been drawn into the fray. The scale of this conflict was undeniably terrifying. In normal times, wars between immortal sects were rare. Even when conflicts arose, they typically involved only a few sects and rarely resulted in widespread bloodshed. After all, who would willingly become a casualty in a conflict, allowing others to profit from the aftermath? But this time was different. The involvement of several true immortal factions alone was enough to indicate the gravity of the situation. Even though the conflict had not yet reached the loose cultivator alliance, there was little cause for celebration. Under the influence of tribulation energy, many immortals would inevitably be drawn into disaster in various ways. This growing conflict could be considered one of the many signs of the great disaster. Do we have any more detailed information? After a moment of silence, Shen Ruyan asked again. Hearing this, Elder La Quarter nodded and stroked his beard before continuing. The conflict began between two factions of Euros, the Bayan Immortal sect and the Panyu Immortal sect. Our scouts have discovered that the two sides clashed over the ownership of a treasured land, which led to an escalating dispute and a battle between powerful members of both sects. Eventually, even several true immortal cultivators from both sides joined the fight, turning the skies dark with their battle. Amidst the fierce fighting, two other immortal Xianxia Euros, who had lost their homes to tribulation and were roaming the region of Euros, suddenly joined the fray. Taking advantage of the chaos, they attempted to claim the treasured land for themselves. At this point, nearly 10 true immortals have become involved, leading to a full-scale war. None of the four factions are willing to back down, and all have committed their full strength. Hearing this, the gathered elders of the Loose Cultivator Alliance gasped in shock. Nearly 10 true immortal cultivators involved in a single battle. Such a conflict hadn't been seen in tens of thousands of years. This war was far more terrifying than anyone had anticipated. Meanwhile, in the central continent of the immortal realm, Ligun Immortal Valley. This valley, located in the central continent, was known for its abundant flowing clouds, resembling a vast river of clouds, with boundless immortal energy filling the air. It was from this phenomenon that the valley took its name. Ligun Immortal Valley had one particularly unusual feature that made it famous. The entire valley was composed of a cloud-like material that constantly shifted and moved, without any discernible pattern, following the mysterious flow of the heavens. However, it was precisely this trait that had made Ligun Immortal Valley the spark for a war. In the central continent, every inch of land was precious and controlled by various immortal sects. Ligun Immortal Valley, due to its shifting nature, would sometimes drift into the territory of one sect and other times into another, with no permanent ownership. For tens of thousands of years, there was a tacit understanding between the two neighboring sects that controlled the area. Neither side sought to forcibly claim the valley, and both developed the land according to the will of the heavens. But as the great disaster approached, this balance was shattered. With the looming threat of calamity and the valley's abundant resources, it became an irresistible prize for both sects. Thus, when the Binge Immortal sect saw Ligun Immortal Valley drift into its territory, it quickly began constructing grand halls and setting up formations to seize the land. The Panyu Immortal sect, having long kept watch, immediately discovered their actions. In a fit of rage, they dispatched two of their true immortal elders, along with many disciples, to forcibly enter Binge Immortal sect's territory and reclaim the valley. The Binge Immortal sect, prepared and resolute, refused to back down, with their own true immortal experts standing guard. The tension was palpable, and the slightest spark could ignite a full-blown war. Under the subtle influence of tribulation energy, both sides became increasingly agitated, with sharp words exchanged and tempers flaring. Without any further reason needed, the battle erupted in an instant. True immortal cultivators from both sides unleashed their treasures, turning the Ligun Immortal Valley into a battlefield that shook the heavens. The Panyu Immortal sect, fearing treachery, immediately mobilized the majority of their forces to support their elders. This, in turn, prompted the Binge Immortal sect to deploy all of its strength, flooding the valley with its forces. The once vast valley was quickly filled with combatants, with immortal cultivators standing on every cloud, their powers clashing like a storm of lightning. At this point, neither side was intent on complete annihilation. But just as the bloodshed intensified, two powerful but unfamiliar factions, led by true immortals, suddenly entered the fray. These two factions, displaced by tribulation and seeking refuge, saw an opportunity in the chaos and aimed to seize the valley for themselves. Their intervention threw the battle into complete disarray. Chapter 1350, Mysterious Forces, Terrifying Power. Chapter 1350, Mysterious Forces, Terrifying Power. Ligun Immortal Valley, a battle shaking the heavens. Amidst the thick clouds, boundless immortal energy surged, transforming into streaks of flowing light, shattering the rivers coursing through the sky. The figures of numerous immortals emerged, displaying their full might, summoning their true forms and avatars. Like towering mountains, they pierced through the heavens, spreading endless destruction with every gesture. Each time immortal energy erupted, the void trembled, giving birth to terrifying cracks that tore through the sky, creating deep abysses that span across the firmament. These immortals, consumed by anger, fought with no restraint, unleashing their full power in the clash. Every magical treasure they activated emitted a radiance that filled the entire Ligun Immortal Valley, bathing it in the light of a great sun. Winds howled through the heavens, while chaotic energy surged like tidal waves, sweeping across all directions. Within the clouds, warriors fought with furious resolve, slaying countless foes. Numerous disciples of various immortal sects perished in a battle that could have been avoided, their blood flowing like rivers, their eyes open in death, unfulfilled. No one knew which side had struck the first lethal blow, but by now it no longer mattered. Among the fragments of destroyed immortal treasures and lifeless bodies, everyone had been ignited with bloodlust, charging at their enemies with reckless abandon, as though the two sides were mortal enemies. What they didn't realize was that this fury was influenced by the impending great calamity, a force lurking within the world. Pan Yu, you have trespassed into our Bu Yun immortal sect's territory, destroyed our sect's grand hall, and killed our disciples. You have gone too far. At the highest battlefield of Liu Yun Immortal Valley, a powerful true immortal shouted, his voice booming like thunder, shaking the sky. His avatar was fierce and terrifying, with a blue face, tusks, and 4 legs, standing on the void while wielding 2 tridents, resembling a wrathful Yaksha demon. HMPH. Your Bu Yun Immortal sect broke the rules first, trying to seize Liu Yun Immortal Valley, and now you dare to cry foul. How laughable. Opposing him, another mountainous figure rose, filled with rage and defiance. This immortal also glared with fury, his fearsome aura radiating like that of an enraged ghost. He wielded a long blade, burning with pitch-black flames that scorched the void, producing a wailing sound and conjuring an image of a deadly abyss. This valley has always belonged to our Bu Yun Immortal sect. Long ago, our sect was the first to settle in this area. In the past, out of respect, we didn't compete with you. But now that the great calamity is approaching, you still refuse to see reason. The Bu Yun Immortal sect immortal spoke coldly, berating the Pan Yu Immortal. Hearing this, the Pan Yu Immortal's lips curled into a cold smile as he retorted, Liu Yun Immortal Valley has always been an unsettled area, drifting between our Pan Yu Immortal sect and yours. If we allow you to build formations and halls here, it would turn into a fortress against us. Such foolishness, don't even think about it. Both sides had their arguments, and soon words became futile. Their magical weapons clashed, and they once again engaged in a fierce battle. These 2 immortals were among the strongest true immortals. Each move they made shook the entire void, causing Liu Yun Immortal Valley to tremble violently. One slash from the sword, one thrust from the trident, and the space across 100 miles was pierced. Mountains in the valley crumbled into dust under the force of their blows. Even the stars in the heavens above were shaken from their places, crashing down from the sky in blazing trails, igniting vast swaths of clouds. In an instant, a sea of fire spread, turning the flowing rivers of Liu Yun Immortal Valley into rivers of fire, a truly terrifying sight. Countless weaker disciples were caught in the crossfire of these mighty immortals' attacks, their pitiful screams ringing out as they were reduced to ashes. What's more, the battlefield wasn't limited to just these 2 immortals. Not far from where Pan Yu and Bu Yun were fighting, several other immortal figures weaved through the sky, displaying tremendous power, their Tao laws intertwining as they launched attacks. Their auras were overwhelming, each one's power enough to distort and shatter the void of the immortal realm. Clearly, these were all powerful true immortals. Who are you? Why are you attacking our sect's disciples? Could you be hired reinforcements? HMPH. You'll find out in the underworld soon enough. Arrogant fool. How dare you spout such nonsense? No matter who you are, if you don't leave now, you'll die. Amidst the swirling chaos, the true immortals unleashed their magical treasures, engaging in a fierce back and forth. Among the combatants, apart from those wearing the robes of Pan Yu and Bu Yun immortal sects, there were 2 other mysterious forces at play. At first, both Pan Yu and Bu Yun disciples assumed these newcomers were reinforcements hired by their opponents. But as the battle raged on, they realized these 2 forces were attacking everyone indiscriminately, clearly not aligned with either sect. Suddenly, the battlefield's dynamics grew increasingly unclear. If this conflict had merely been between Pan Yu and Bu Yun over Liu Yun Immortal Valley, there would have been some justification. But now, the sudden intervention of these mysterious forces raised more questions. Where had they come from and why? Boom! Boom! Yet there was no more time for thought. The power being unleashed by the immortals was becoming increasingly terrifying, increasingly overwhelming. Each person, consumed by bloodlust, summoned all their magical treasures, hurling them at any enemy in sight, desperate to obliterate them. Chapter 1351, Mysterious Forces, Terrifying Power, Part 2. Chapter 1351, Mysterious Forces, Terrifying Power, Part 2. The fierce slaughter raged on as if it would never end. With every passing second, cultivators fell, turning into cold corpses. As the battle intensified, the two mysterious forces gained the upper hand. These forces of unknown origin weaved through the battlefield, sowing chaos and slaughtering indiscriminately. Though fighting on unfamiliar ground, they were well prepared and united, gradually taking control of the battlefield. Hurry and kill these people. If we don't, a catastrophe will befall us when the time comes, shouted one true immortal from the mysterious force during the intense skirmish. His fellow cultivator from the same side, growing impatient, retorted, easier said than done. These cunning fools are already targeting us. Amidst the blood-soaked battlefield of Immortal Valley, the once blinding scene of slaughter began to clear as the cultivators from the Immortal sect and the Panyu Immortal sect regained some of their senses, prompted by the horrifying sight before them. You treacherous bastard! You've brought wolves into your own house, Euros, fool, shouted one Panyu Immortal. Shut up. You're the ones resorting to underhanded methods. Now that we've both suffered, are you satisfied? The Immortal retorted angrily. By now, both sides had been fighting for so long that their celestial forms were battered, their auras dim, and their hearts filled with fatigue and rage. But now, they finally noticed the abnormality. Apart from their own forces, there were outsiders fighting on the battlefield of Euros, foreign cultivators with mysterious origins. Instantly, both sides sensed a plot at play. Their battle lust receded slightly as they began to assess the situation more rationally. The realization struck them. Other forces had infiltrated their conflict. Damn it! The two true immortals cursed under their breath, exchanging a glance before they both directed their damaged celestial forms toward the invaders. The tribulation energy's influence was not unlimited to Euros. It couldn't fully strip true immortals of their reason. Their violent clash had been fueled by long-standing grievances between the two sects and a desire for dominance over the Immortal Valley. But now that foreign forces were encroaching upon them, their rational minds began to reassert themselves. Intruders, you dare slaughter our disciples. Prepare to be suppressed, one shouted. Who dares trespass here and seek death? The other followed suit. With that, the Bayan and Panyu immortals unleashed powerful attacks toward the mysterious invaders. The mysterious cultivators, momentarily caught off guard, had no choice but to abandon their immediate targets to defend themselves against the incoming divine powers. Thanks to this shift in focus, the Bayan and Panyu sect disciples who had been pushed to the brink of collapse were finally able to catch their breath. They had been caught off guard by the sudden ambush, resulting in many casualties. Boom! The arrival of the two sect leaders immediately disrupted the mysterious forces' plans. Yet those forces did not retreat. Their true immortals displayed their power, clashing violently with the sect leaders in the sky. The leaders of the mysterious faction turned out to be powerful true immortals themselves, wielding divine powers and matching the Bayan and Panyu immortals in battle. The four clashed, tearing apart the blood-soaked skies above the Immortal Valley, creating voids of nothingness in the heavens as crimson thunder roared overhead, fueling the ongoing war. In an instant, the battlefield's dynamics shifted once again. The Bayan and Panyu immortals, who moments ago were bent on killing each other, now found themselves fighting side by side against a common enemy, as if the countless bodies of their fallen disciples were forgotten in the face of this new threat. Kill! Avenge our fallen brothers! Charge ye Euros! Spurred on by their leaders, the disciples of both sects roared in unison, reigniting their battle spirit. Covered in blood, they unleashed their celestial power and summoned their divine treasures, no longer caring about their previous grudges. Instead, they turned all their fury toward the mysterious forces, fighting as one. As the blood-soaked battle raged on, those sect spies who had been observing from the sidelines were stunned by the sudden turn of events. They couldn't understand what had just happened. Why had the enemies suddenly shifted their focus? And who were these mysterious invaders? All they could do was record every detail of the battle and report back to their respective sects, leaving it to their elders to analyze the situation. Thus, the news of this brutal war quickly spread across the immortal realm, drawing the attention of countless factions. Given the sensitivity of the times, A war involving true immortals inevitably raised countless questions and concerns. This battle is becoming increasingly chaotic. Something's not right. Something's really not right. Many leaders of the major powers were sensing the same thing. Euros. Something was deeply wrong. What had originally seemed like a minor conflict between two sects had spiraled into a bloodbath, now involving third and even fourth factions. Everything was becoming murkier by the minute. It seems these mysterious factions are far from ordinary. They're not just wandering sects displaced by calamity. There's something far more sinister at play here. In the council hall of the Loose Cultivator Alliance, Shen Ruyan, reading the latest reports, furrowed her brows and murmured to herself. As the battle intensified, it felt as though some dark secret was beginning to surface. Damn it! The time is approaching. You've left me no choice. Amidst the escalating suspicions across the realm, a massive upheaval was brewing on the battlefield of the Lian Immortal Valley. In the shattered void above, enveloped by clouds of blood and chaos, one of the true immortal leaders of the mysterious faction suddenly wore a crazed expression. Glaring at the Bian and Panyu immortals, he shouted in fury. Then, under the watchful and wary eyes of the two sect leaders, the mysterious true immortal unleashed an object. Instantly, a terrifying black wind erupted, howling through the battlefield. In the blink of an eye, it swallowed an entire section of the sky, exuding a chilling aura of destruction. This is tribulation energy. How is this possible? Both the Bian and Panyu immortals gasped in shock, their hearts trembling at the sight of the black wind. This devastating force, filled with the aura of destruction, was unmistakably tribulation energy. The sheer presence of such power left them both terrified and bewildered. Tribulation energy, a force tied to the essence of calamity, was something no true immortal could withstand. How then could this mysterious faction wield it? Suppress them all. But the enemy gave them no time to contemplate. The mysterious true immortal's form suddenly morphed into a grotesque mass of tentacles, writhing like a bundle of chaotic threads, shrouded in darkness. In an instant, these tentacles burst open, spewing black blood, with scarlet lightning crackling from the gaping wounds. Like a web of doom, this energy spread out in all directions, engulfing the battlefield. Both the Bian and Panyu immortals reacted in horror, hurriedly unleashing their most powerful treasures to defend themselves. Before them, layers of mystical visions manifested as they channeled their Tao forces to the limit, desperately attempting to fend off the tribulation-like energy. Chapter 1352, The Collapse of the Immortal Valley, The Emergence of the Mysterious Treasure, Part 1. Chapter 1352, The Collapse of the Immortal Valley, The Emergence of the Mysterious Treasure, Part 1. The battlefield was chaotic, with constant shifts in momentum, leaving everyone dizzy from the ever-changing tide of battle. The Panyu Immortal sect and Bian Immortal sect had first fought a brutal battle against each other, both sides suffering heavy losses. Then a mysterious force launched a surprise attack, further escalating the chaos. Just as the two sects began to realize the need to unite and suppress their mysterious enemy, the intruders unleashed a terrifying power, once again plunging the battlefield into disarray. The terrifying power, released by the mysterious true immortal, resembled the dreaded force of tribulation energy. It wreaked havoc across the battlefield, swallowing everything in its path and striking fear into the hearts of all who witnessed it. Lian Immortal Valley, once a river of red from the bloodshed, was now shrouded in black mist. The valley had transformed from red to black, becoming even more eerie. The aura emitted by the power was indistinguishable from tribulation energy. In an instant, the dark storm whipped through the void, aiming to destroy the enormous celestial forms of the Panyu and Bian immortals, trapping their towering figures within. Damn it! What is this thing? My celestial form is being corroded. As the storm raged, a terrifying scene unfolded before them. The powerful celestial forms of the Panyu and Bian immortals, revered for their indomitable strength, were being eaten away by the strange black wind, leaving cracks in their once impervious bodies. Their forms, which were supposed to be as unyielding as stone, were crumbling as if they were mere statues weathered by time. To those familiar with the resilience of a true immortal celestial form, this was truly horrifying. Normally, not even the sharpest celestial blades or the most potent Tao-infused magma could harm such forms. During this battle, despite their ferocious exchanges of power, their celestial forms had only dimmed slightly. Yet now, the mysterious black wind had effortlessly worn away their bodies, exposing them to unprecedented danger. Suppress it! With a mighty roar, the Panyu immortal summoned his life-saving treasure. In a burst of dazzling light, a bright green jade seal appeared in his hand, sparkling like translucent jade. The seal, exquisitely crafted, resembled a coiled dragon's jade talisman, both elegant and majestic. Rara Euros. As the Panyu immortal activated the seal, it unleashed a tremendous force. The jade dragon on the seal sprang to life, rapidly expanding into a colossal figure that coiled around the Panyu immortal's celestial form, merging with him and drastically increasing his power, pushing him to the pinnacle of true immortal strength. With fury in his eyes, the Panyu immortal unleashed a massive strike. His colossal hand, now coiled with the jade dragon, radiated divine light as it crashed toward the black wind, tearing through the storm with overwhelming power. Brilliant green celestial light lit up the sky, suppressing the chaotic black storm in its path. External avatar. Not to be outdone, the Bayan immortal unleashed his own most powerful divine ability. Celestial energy surged, and a thick cloud of mist billowed out from the Bayan immortal's celestial form, swirling around the battlefield. Within this mist, colorful celestial light danced, distorting the space around it like ripples in a pond. Amid these ripples, the mist began to solidify, and soon, two identical copies of the Bayan immortal's celestial form emerged from the mist. Kill them! With a flash of determination in his eyes, the Bayan immortal commanded his two avatars to attack. The two identical celestial forms charged forward, each one as mighty as the original, shaking the heavens as they moved to strike the enemy. At this moment, all four true immortals were forced into a corner, and each unleashed their ultimate life-saving techniques. The sheer power they wielded, approaching the peak of true immortal might, threatened to annihilate Lian Immortal Valley itself. Boom! 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 The battlefield shook with deafening explosions as the immense power clashed. The earth cracked, rivers of blood surged, and the once magnificent Lian Immortal Valley began to dissolve into nothingness, replaced by gaping voids. The chaotic energy consumed everything in its path, obliterating all traces of the valley. The immense force of the battle was so overwhelming that even the remaining disciples and elders from the warring factions, still locked in battle nearby, were forced to stop and flee in terror, lest they be caught in the devastating aftershocks of the clash. The magnitude of the battle's power was enough to obliterate anyone caught within Eta Euros, let alone the fact that the black mist was now part of the mix. Boom! 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 The constant barrage of earth-shattering explosions shook the heavens as the battle raged on. Finally, the once-proud Lian Immortal Valley began to crumble. Mountains collapsed, half dissolving into cloud-like mists that drifted across the battlefield, while the other half shattered into massive stones, raining down from the sky like fiery red meteors. Even the mysterious true immortal who had initiated the chaos was stunned by the turn of events, his eyes filled with disbelief. He had thought that by unleashing the tribulation-like power, he could crush his enemies with ease. But to his surprise, both the Panyu and Bayan immortals had hidden their true trump cards, and their combined strength was enough to withstand his attack. Meanwhile, the Panyu and Bayan immortals had little time to dwell on the situation. Their colossal celestial forms had already been stripped bare by the black wind, leaving them in a precarious state. Their once mighty forms now looked grotesque and ravaged. Chapter 1353, The Collapse of the Immortal Valley, The Emergence of the Mysterious Treasure Part 2. Chapter 1353, The Collapse of the Immortal Valley, The Emergence of the Mysterious Treasure Part 2. Cracks and fissures like spiderwebs spread across their bodies. Even their faces were marked by strange black symbols, and with every breath, their energy was being devoured by the dark power. Both the Panyu Immortal and the Bayan Immortal gritted their teeth, pushing their celestial power to the limit as they desperately channeled the last remnants of their strength into their treasures. This was their final lifeline. Circumflex Euros. Amidst the apocalyptic destruction, the anguished roars of the immortals echoed through the air. The spectators who had withdrawn from the battlefield watched in stunned silence, their hearts heavy. True immortals, once seen as untouchable figures, were now caught in a desperate struggle for survival. This scene invoked a deep sense of sorrow among the onlookers. Master, Let us help you." Seeing this, the true immortal elders of the Panyu Immortal sect and the Bayan Immortal sect were filled with fury and determination. They prepared to charge into the collapsing Lian Immortal Valley, hoping to aid their sect leaders. But before they could act, they were intercepted by the mysterious force, who held them back, preventing them from coming to their master's aid. No euros. Just when all hope seemed lost, and as the celestial forms of the Panyu and Bayan immortals began to crumble under the pressure of the dark mist, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, Lian Immortal Valley, having endured the immense power of the battle, finally reached its breaking point. After withstanding the clash of nearly 10 true immortals and the onslaught of hundreds of immortals, the valley, once a sacred ground, could no longer maintain its form. As the valley began to collapse, the resulting release of power was catastrophic. The entire world seemed to twist and turn, with space and time warping chaotically. Violent surges of primordial energy erupted from the heart of the valley, sweeping across the battlefield. Even true immortals were caught off guard by the ferocity of the spacetime storms that tore through everything in their path. The celestial avatars of the Bayan Immortal and the Panyu Immortal, the Jade Dragon, and the mysterious true immortal's dark Mystauros, all were shattered by the shockwaves from the valley's collapse. The three true immortals were violently thrown hundreds of miles away, crashing into the ruins of the battlefield, their celestial forms in tatters. Above the battlefield, a massive tier had formed in the sky, where endless clouds gathered, creating a terrifying black hole that seemed to swallow everything in its wake. They even destroyed the sacred land. They've gone mad, destroying such a valuable place during times like these. Sigh. What a waste, they've committed a grave sin. Immortal powerhouses from various factions, who had been observing the battle, couldn't help but sigh in disbelief. For a treasured land to be destroyed in this manner was unheard of, especially in the current era of calamities. Such places were more precious than ever. With so many sacred lands being ravaged by tribulation disaster, the remaining few were crucial refuges for displaced forces. Yet this battle had obliterated one of those rare sanctuaries, leaving many to shake their heads in sorrow. Buzz a circumflex euros. But just as everyone thought the chaos had reached its conclusion, an unexpected development shocked them all. Even as Lian Immortal Valley continued to collapse, with clouds and mists cascading like waterfalls for hundreds of miles, an eerie ripple emerged from behind the celestial phenomenon. It was as if something hidden was now being revealed. The truth was that the collapse of the valley had unearthed a secret that none had expected. Waves of nine-colored light rippled out from behind the clouds, revealing a powerful and mysterious force. The aura it emanated was filled with primordial energy, capturing the attention of every cultivator on the battlefield. Could there be a hidden treasure within Lian Immortal Valley? Both the Panyu Immortal and the Bayan Immortal, still recovering from the brutal fight, exchanged confused glances. Despite their exhaustion and the grievous injuries inflicted by the mysterious force, they were now faced with this newfound enigma. Propped up by their elders, the two immortals looked on, their once majestic robes in tatters and their celestial energy severely depleted. Though the valley's collapse had saved them from immediate death, they remained gravely weakened, still battling the lingering corruption of the dark mist. What is that?" the Panyu Immortal whispered weakly. "I've never heard of anything like this," replied the Bayan Immortal, equally perplexed. For tens of thousands of years, their sects had known of Lian Immortal Valley, but had never uncovered any such secrets. Now it was clear that something monumental lay hidden within the Valia Euros, a treasure that neither sect had ever imagined. The two true immortals felt a deep sense of shock, but it was quickly followed by bitter regret. They had unknowingly been sitting atop a mountain of treasure for millennia, yet had remained completely unaware of its existence. Now, as the treasure revealed itself, the possibility of claiming it seemed more distant than ever. Having just survived a devastating battle with heavy losses, their forces were in no position to compete for the treasure. They could only watch helplessly as events unfolded. Damn it! How could this have happened? The treasure has finally appeared. Meanwhile, the true immortal from the mysterious force cursed angrily. Their mission in Lian Immortal Valley had been to seize this very treasure. Although they were indeed refugees from destroyed sects, victims of the tribulation, they had also been fortunate enough to acquire the strange power of the Black Mist. This discovery had also revealed to them the secret of the valley's hidden treasure. They had orchestrated the conflict between the Panyu and Bayan immortal sects, intending to take advantage of the chaos to claim the treasure for themselves. But their plans had gone awry at the critical moment, and the valley's collapse had exposed the treasure to the world. Now, the true immortals' anger and frustration were palpable. They had lost the element of surprise, and the treasure was no longer theirs to take. Retrieve the treasure at all costs. Forget about the others. Acting decisively, the mysterious true immortal gave the command to their forces, shifting their focus from the Panyu and Bayan sects to the treasure hidden within the valley. Go! In a flash, the mysterious force surged toward the source of the nine-colored light, leaving everyone else in stunned silence. Don't let those bastards take it. With a roar, the Panyu immortal gave the order, and the elders and disciples of both the Panyu and Bayan sects immediately followed in pursuit. The allure of the primordial treasure was too great, and despite their weakened state, they were determined to try their luck. We'll assist as well. Even the hidden observers from other factions, who had been sent to watch the conflict, now revealed themselves. Seeing the treasure's emergence, they could no longer hold back their desires. Under the blood-red sky, the scene resembled a flock of black crows descending upon a feast, each faction scrambling to claim the prize for themselves. Chapter 1354, 100 Immortals Battle, Shen Ruyan Intervenes Part 1. Chapter 1354, 100 Immortals Battle, Shen Ruyan Intervenes Part 1. The collapse of the Liyun Immortal Valley and the emergence of a mysterious treasure, exuding a powerful aura, quickly spread across the battlefield. Scouts from various factions swiftly reported the news back to their sects, reaching the ears of the high-ranking members. Immediately, countless elders and leaders of different sects were astonished and intrigued. They suddenly understood the real reason behind the chaos. It became clear to them that the mysterious faction must have intervened to seize this treasure. Move quickly. Investigate the nature of the treasure and stop the others from claiming it. Buy us time. Decisive and shrewd, the leaders of various sects issued commands, instructing their dispatched cultivators to delay other forces. Meanwhile, the top members of each sect started making preparations, gathering their elders to personally head to the Liyun Immortal Valley and compete for the treasure. As a result, the battlefield in the valley grew tenfold, even 100-fold more chaotic than before. Numerous factions revealed themselves from their hidden positions, soaring into the sky and rushing toward the massive, shattered Liyun Immortal Valley, which had transformed into an enormous cloud waterfall stretching for miles. The giant waterfall of clouds roared across the void, an awe-inspiring spectacle, pouring down from the heavens with immense power. The force unleashed from the valley shook the very fabric of the surrounding land, causing the earth to tremble continuously. Behind this massive cascade of clouds, the light emanating from the mysterious treasure grew even more intense. Multicolored beams of light shot out from cracks in the waterfall, stretching for miles and illuminating the entire realm with a brilliant aurora. You won't get away. Take this strike. The first group to make a move consisted of the elders and immortals from the Panyu Immortal sect and Bayan Immortal sect. Arriving at the front lines, they quickly closed in on the mysterious faction who had taken the lead. Without hesitation, these sect members unleashed their celestial powers, manifesting their treasures in radiant bursts of light, hurling them toward their enemies. For the Panyu and Bayan sects, this mysterious faction had not only ruined their sacred ground, but had also exposed the existence of a priceless treasure. Their hatred for these invaders burned deeply, and the two sects, temporarily setting aside their grievances, joined forces to attack. Damn it! You lot stay behind and hold them off. Seeing the sudden assault, the true immortal leading the mysterious faction cursed angrily and barked orders at his comrades. However, to his shock, his group no longer heeded his commands. You want us to stay back while you claim the treasure for yourself. One of the other true immortal leaders from the mysterious faction sneered mockingly, his tone dripping with distrust. At this point, with the treasure so close, no one could resist the lure of greed, and none of them were willing to stay behind. You fools! You're all idiots, the original leader fumed, his face turning pale with rage. But before he could continue arguing, the cultivators from the Panyu and Bayan sects arrived, unleashing torrents of celestial energy upon them. HMPH. No more Wurtza Euros, now it's every man for himself. With a cold snort, the rebellious leader of the mysterious faction dismissed further discussions, and the group disbanded, breaking apart at the most critical moment. The leading true immortal could only seethe with frustration. Their alliance had always been one of convenience, driven by shared interests. Now that the treasure was within reach, reining them back in was impossible. Damn it! Left with no choice, the mysterious faction splintered into separate groups, each scrambling to defend themselves from the relentless onslaught of the Panyu and Bayan sects. A fierce battle erupted once again. Immortal treasures clashed in the sky, radiating terrifying power that ripped through the heavens. The entire battlefield, now populated by nearly 100 immortals from various factions, became a war zone, each side wielding their full might without mercy. Boom! 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 Explosions echoed across the sky, even visible through the cascading cloud waterfall. Celestial powers collided with a force that shattered the very fabric of the void, leaving gaping craters in the vast cloudscape below. The battlefield descended into utter chaos, with raging torrents of destruction and annihilation unleashed by the hands of immortals. As the mysterious faction fought against the combined forces of the Panyu and Bayan sects, another group of cultivators silently traversed the sky, aiming for the radiant cloud waterfall. The multicolored light grew even more brilliant as they neared, reflecting off their eager faces. The powerful aura emanating from the treasure was unmistakably Euros. This was a treasure of the highest order, at the level of Earth immortals, containing primordial energy. Sensing this, the second wave of immortal combat erupted in full force, triggered by the allure of the treasure. Chapter 1355. The 100 Immortal Battle, Shen Ruyan Takes Action Part 2. Chapter 1355. The 100 Immortal Battle, Shen Ruyan Takes Action Part 2. As more immortals approached the massive cloud waterfall, old rivalries and grudges between sects began to flare up. Taijai, why the rush? How about we catch up for old time's sake? A lagging immortal sneered coldly as he summoned his celestial treasure to launch a sneak attack on his rival ahead. You dare block my path? You're courting death. The attacked immortal quickly retaliated, unleashing his powers to block the ambush. However, in the blink of an eye, he had fallen behind. Furious, he refused to let it go and immediately channeled all his strength, sending his divine abilities surging toward his opponent. Boom! Boom! Similar scenes played out across the sky. Countless sects and immortals with deep-seated enmity clashed as they raced for the treasure. Many sect leaders had already issued orders to hinder their rivals at any cost. Within moments, chaos erupted in the sky. In addition to the battle between the Panyu Immortal sect, the Bayan Immortal sect, and the mysterious forces, numerous other skirmishes ignited, unleashing deafening roars of thunder that churned the heavens and clouds into a frenzy. Storms raged across the void as celestial powers clashed like lightning strikes. Fiery beams, cold winds, blazing flames, and mystical rains filled the air. The celestial might of immortals transformed the sky into a maelstrom of devastation. Within a few breaths, the void was torn apart, revealing vast stretches of nothingness, and the once beautiful Lian Immortal Valley was reduced to ruins. Only the colossal, pale cloud waterfall remained, endlessly cascading through the sky. Meanwhile, back in the loose cultivator alliance, Shen Ruyan and the others had received word of the treasure's appearance in Lian Immortal Valley. Shen Ruyan furrowed her brows in deep thought, contemplating how much force they should deploy and whether they should join the fray. The loose cultivator alliance had grown into a dominant power in the Xianxia Immortal realm. If they sent their entire army of immortals, excluding Earth immortal-level figures, even the combined forces of the Panyu Immortal sect, the Bayan Immortal sect, and the mysterious faction would struggle to stand against them. However, committing all their forces to seize the treasure would be unwise. Some forces needed to stay behind to guard against potential catastrophes and secure their stronghold. A full mobilization might leave their territory vulnerable to opportunistic attacks from rivals. Shen Ruyan understood that, although the loose cultivator alliance dominated the western region of the Xianxia Immortal realm, it didn't mean there weren't eyes watching for a chance to strike. Send my orders, gather the elders, and then we'll make a trip to the Tianlong Commerce Guild. Shen Ruyan swiftly made her decision and issued a transmission order. Soon, a group of loose cultivator alliance elders gathered to discuss the matter with her. After deliberation, they decided to send 10 true immortal-level cultivators to the battlefield at Immortal Valley. However, Shen Ruyan's close confidants, such as Lai Zhan, were to remain behind to oversee the defense of their sect. With the lineup finalized, Shen Ruyan didn't rush to depart. Instead, she led the group to the Tianlong Commerce Guild, located on the western border. Fairy Shen, it's an honor to have you and your esteemed companions here. How may our guild be of service today? Soon after, the slightly rotund figure of Fuguang Immortal appeared in the grand hall of the Tianlong Commerce Guild to welcome her. Though he was an Earth Immortal, he treated Shen Ruyan as a peer, recognizing her as a fellow Taoist. She represented not only the loose cultivator alliance, but also the powerful Jiang Chengxuan. Moreover, their two factions were now allies, so mutual respect was essential. Respect to you, Immortal Fuguang. There's little time for pleasantries, so I'll get straight to the point. Shen Ruyan greeted him with a bow, her tone direct and urgent. Fuguang Immortal nodded in acknowledgement, motioning for her to continue. As the leader of a major force like the Tianlong Commerce Guild, he was well informed and could already guess the reason for her visit. Have you heard of the events at Immortal Valley? Shen Ruyan began, her query straightforward. I've heard rumors about a treasure emerging. Could this be true? Fuguang Immortal replied, already suspecting what was coming. Yes, it's a treasure of Earth Immortal level. Wasting no time, the two got straight to the heart of the matter. This treasure is indeed enticing. However, I've also heard that many forces are already vying for it. I fear it won't be easy to secure, Fuguang Immortal mused aloud after a moment of thought. Our guild has just started recovering from the disasters we faced. As much as I would love to pursue this treasure, I'm afraid we lack the manpower right now. His words carried no deception. The Tianlong Commerce Guild had suffered significant losses during the recent calamities, and most of their remaining forces were already spread across the immortal realm of Euros, engaged in negotiations, treasure hunts, and alliances. With most of their immortals occupied, the guild was unable to send a contingent large enough to compete for the treasure without taking severe risks. I see, Shen Ruyan said, her expression neutral, understanding the guild's position. She was well aware of their situation, which was the very reason she had come. We in the Loose Cultivator Alliance are planning to go after this mysterious treasure. Given the circumstances, I propose that the Tianlong Commerce Guild join us in the effort. Whether we succeed or fail, the alliance will cover the costs, and we will fairly compensate the guild for its participation. What do you think? Shen Ruyan's words were clear, laying out her proposal. She had foreseen the guild's predicament. Since they lacked the strength to act independently, the alliance would hire their assistance, ensuring the odds of success increased while also allowing the guild to benefit. It was a win-win situation. Haha, Fuguang Immortal paused for a moment before chuckling. His eyes gleamed with approval as he nodded. He admired Shen Ruyan's wisdom, realizing she was indeed worthy of being Jiang Chengxuan's partner. Her sharp mind and decisiveness were evident in her clever proposal. Helaza, excellent. Since you've extended such a generous offer, how could our guild refuse? Allow me a moment to gather the remaining elders, and will accompany you. Fuguang Immortal agreed decisively, wasting no time on further negotiations. He trusted Shen Ruyan, and knew their alliance was built on solid ground. His agreement brought a smile to Shen Ruyan's face. With the Tianlong Commerce Guild's assistance, their chances of securing the treasure had significantly improved. Soon after, from the western border of the Xianxia Immortal realm, over a dozen immortals shot through the sky as streaks of light, led by Shen Ruyan, heading swiftly toward the central battlefield at Immortal Valley.